In the White House, President Eisenhower signs the proclamation that makes Alaska's entry into the Union official, nearly 92 years after Lincoln's Secretary of State bought the territory from the Russian Tsar for $7 million.
The Alaska Wild Project podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Barney's Sports Chalet, supplying hunters with the best hand-selected gear since 1963. The exclusive home of frontier gear built for the rugged Alaskan terrain. Your one-stop shop for all your outdoor needs. Visit Barney's today at 906 West Northern Lights.
Arbor Digital, the forefront of digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and wealth management, providing a low-cost, research-based investment strategy for Alaskans looking to invest their hard-earned money. Visit arborcapital.io today to put your money to work.
Tailored Restoration 24-hour emergency home services, helping Alaskans restore their dreams since 1972. Services include fire, water, mold, post-emergency cleaning, repair, and remodeling. Give them a call in Anchorage, Eagle River, Matsu, or Fairbanks. Hit them up at tailoredrestorationalaska.com.
Total Truck and Alaska Overlander, Alaska's premier supplier for custom automotive accessories and overlanding products, providing all-inclusive rental vehicles and trailers custom outfitted to explore the Alaskan backcountry with a unique and convenient traveling experience.
Serrano's Mexican Grill, 2 locations, one on Tudor, one on Northern Lights. The Northern Lights location has their new tequila bar. Check it out. Also see their daily specials at serranosmexicangrill.com.
TheTreehouseAK.com, located at 341 Boniface Parkway, Alaska's own and grown cannabis and CBD store. Ask the bud tender what the strain of the day is to get your 10% off. The Treehouse, where the culture lives.
The Connoisseur Lounge, Alaska's premier locally owned and operated cannabis retailer, located in the heart of Palmer, Alaska. Their cultivated products include Snowcap Romance, Aurora Haze, Super Glue, and much more. Find them at theconnoisseurlounge.net.
AKO Farms, located in Sitka, Alaska, built from the ground up with concentrates as their single motivation, with exclusive products such as their sugar wax, full spectrum diamond sauce carts, and more. Ask your local bud tender about AKO. Marijuana has intoxicating effects and may be habit-forming and addictive. Marijuana impairs concentration, coordination, and judgment. Do not operate a vehicle or machinery under the influence. There are health risks associated with consumption of marijuana. For the use of only by adults 21 and older. Keep out of the reach of children, and marijuana should not be used by women who are pregnant or breastfeeding.
The Bait Shack, located on Ship Creek upstream of the bridge. Can't miss the bright red shack. They're the go-to fishing gear rental and guide service on Ship Creek. Tight lines and fish on. Come hook into the action with them. Hit them up at thebaitshackak.com.
Snow Pro AK, your snow and ice management company specializing in business and residential properties. They know what it takes to keep your property presentable and safe. Give them a call for a free estimate at 280-7098 or visit lawnproak.com. Double Shovel Cider Company, located off of Arctic and 58th. Handcrafted Alaskan-made colonial ciders. They also have a tap room downtown on the corner of 5th and E. Stop by today and taste an award-winning cider.
The Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. BHA is the voice of our Alaskan public lands, waters, and wildlife. Their goal is to uphold our hunting and fishing legacy while keeping our public lands wild. Stand up today and join BHA at backcountryhunters.org. Early start, Jack.
Ooh, yeah.
I'm on it.
You're on it.
Yeah, this is my first one of the day. So
Yeah, you were saving it, man. Good job.
Yeah, I did taste some of the pepper peak today, and it is bomb and hot.
That looks so spicy.
Dude, it's good.
Oh, my God. That huge bag you guys had.
Oh, man.
How do you control it if it's too spicy?
Too spicy? But no, I don't think that's a real thing.
Oh,
I'm with you on that.
The diehard Pepper Peak fans.
I wanted to burn my
they're always
face
like,
all the way down.
You didn't make it hot again this year. And it's like, no, it is hot. So this year we brought back the heat.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, it's style, dude. It's good. Like,
you guys go full goggles, full hazmat suit?
Oh, you got to. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, people are like choking in the back, basically.
Do you ever offer anybody like $100 to just do a full line, just a full pepper line?
Yeah. Just a full shot of just the pepper juice.
I would just feel too bad what that would do to them, man.
Straight to the ER.
Yeah. I will say that my first, you got that little $100 aroma smell first, you know. And when I went to do that today, like just the smell, like kind of like tingled my throat a little bit.
Get your eye just watering.
Just the back of my yeah.
What's the orange one? The little orange one?
Habaneros.
Oh, that's habanero.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
One time, I used that for my halibut spicy mango ceviche.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. You must wear gloves when you're doing that, because I didn't, and I thought, oh, okay, this was like in the morning.
Oh yeah, totally.
All day I washed my hands multiple times. All day. That night,
Good eye
take my
rub.
contacts out. Yeah.
Oh man,
I was rolling around on the ground like a child.
that's right, dude. You just splashing milk in.
Oh, is that what you do? No, I don't know. I would have
Just
did
take the
anything.
gallon
I almost
and
had my wife take me to the
plug.
hospital.
Yeah, I use milk on the skin. I don't know what else people would use, but for like equipment, I use alcohol, like 70% isopropyl, just like that capsaicin. Just it's like ripped off with the alcohol. But you have to run that alcohol through stuff, like through your equipment, like 2 or 3 times.
What if you could put milk in the eye?
Why couldn't you?
Yeah.
I think you can.
I mean,
I'm
Yeah.
trying to
A lot of
remember
stuff
what
in
I
there.
did. I got taco seasoning in my eye once, and it was brutal. It wouldn't have been habanero bad, though.
Did I tell you guys the time we were going to go out on a hunt? I think I might have said this early in the podcast. And it was one of those like, hey, we're picking you up at 4 a.m. Be ready, you know. So I get all my stuff out into the garage and like out on the driveway. I'm like ready to go 4 a.m. You know, my brother, I don't know who's coming to pick me. I think it was my brother. And I'm like checking the bear canister. And for some reason, like when you first unclick it, sometimes a little comes out.
Yeah.
And like an idiot, I'm like looking at it. I was like, let me just make sure this thing's ready to rock, dude. Right in my eye, bro. And I start screaming, rolling around on the ground, just in like all my camo. I'm just like ready to go.
4 a.m.?
4 a.m. And finally I'm like, what am I doing? And I like go in the house and I come back out and I look across the street. And my neighbor is just sitting up there looking and just laughing. He was up like getting ready for work or something. He's just out on his porch like smoking a cigarette or something. And he just looks at me and just shakes his head.
Oh, man,
It's
that's
like-
awesome, dude. That should be on like when dads get her Instagram or something.
Oh, man. I mean, rolling around
Yeah.
in the street. It was funny.
John, I bet you've had your fair share of bear spray.
Yeah, but I almost say it's better than getting shot in the butt with a 44. That would be.
Shit.
Oh,
My dad took around once when he started up on the dew line and was out caribou hunting and got shot by his buddy.
Oh, fuck, dude.
I always
God.
figured, I'd much rather be pepper sprayed, and I've had my experience with pepper spray, but never been shot with a bullet.
That's a one-upper. What was that, a grazed like flesh wound or the full?
No, it was the full. He had
the double butthole now?
yeah, actually
Yeah,
he did.
he's permanently maimed.
He was working on the dew line, and the caribou were coming right past the place. So at the end of the work, back then you could just walk off the job site and go hunting. And so he did, popped a caribou, handed his rifle to his hunting buddy, and went up to make sure it was down with his .22 pistol. And he bent over to check on the caribou. It was dead, and then he said all of a sudden it was just like pile driver, and his buddy had checked on him with the scope of his rifle, and then he had a hair trigger and touched off a round with his glove because it was in the winter. And put it right.
Oh, he was just like glancing through the glass just to check on him.
Yeah, using the scope of the rifle to check on his
Oh
buddy.
my
gosh.
goodness, way too comfortable.
That's what binoculars are for.
Yep.
Oh, my.
Gun safety
that
101 right there.
Yep, and they.
Damn, man. I mean, that could have been way worse.
Yeah.
Well, at the time they said you're not going to live from this, and he
bleeding
tipped over.
out?
Yeah, he tipped over into the snow, and his buddy freaked out because he thought he just shot him to death, and he was a heavyset guy and started running through the snow and falling down, trying to get back to the warehouses and get help. And so my dad rolled to his side and started shooting at the building with his .22. And everyone
Get
heard
somebody's
the shots.
attention.
Yeah, got the attention of everyone else there. They came out to see what was going on, called a medevac, and the first guy that was on scene, said this guy's not going to make it. As he loaded my conscious father into the plane,
Oh, man.
and my dad was like, "Fuck you, I'm going to make it."
Yeah. Don't tell me that shit.
So they flew him to Fairbanks, and then back then they had to put out a notice to get blood. They didn't have enough blood at the hospital at the time, and enough people came in and filled him back up with blood, and he made it.
Nice.
Oh my
But
goodness.
they said he would never have kids because it blew things all over the place.
Holy shit.
And so he told the doctor, "Oh, I'm going to prove you wrong there too."
Wow.
So you're a miracle.
You are.
Yeah.
What's the dew line?
That was the distant early warning system. So when you see these weird pictures of golf balls out on the coast, those are those big round kind of radar stations. So inside of that would be for listening to the Russians back then, and then most of them were decommissioned, I think, around the 1970s. But
like Cold War shit.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And that was, I think, when my dad came up here in the early '60s, and he was just stoked on Alaska from the get-go.
How can you not be, right?
Right.
Especially back then.
Yeah. And so I think he ended up as a cook for a while out there, and then when the pipeline came through, then became a pipe fitter, and was just always kind of skill building, but with the ultimate idea that he wanted
building, I like that.
Yeah, he wanted to move farther out where there was nobody, and so kind of worked his way into the Brooks Range, and then that's where he really kind of set down roots out there. And he ended up starting a guiding business out there for doing big game guiding. He was a master guide, and then wanted to build a lodge. And so the folks started in 1974 and built a lodge 200 miles north of Fairbanks.
Wow. Was his nickname One Cheek?
No, I don't.
Is that too soon? I don't know. I just
nobody really bugged him about that.
It's probably a sensitive subject. I just wanted to throw it. It's been a while, so.
So it must not have hobbled him at all, huh? If he was able to be a hunting guide after that.
Yeah, it came out right about his crotch, and it didn't hurt. Like it didn't take out any big muscles or tendons. Didn't break any big blood vessels. Like, apparently,
just kind of put a hole through him.
Yeah, I guess if you're gonna shoot someone in the butt, he got shot in just the right spot. So. But it wasn't like right in the hole. It wasn't like in his cheek. Like his cheek had a dimple. But why it didn't shatter his hip? Because if you shot a caribou like that, it would go
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Like it would have.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what a 44 can do for as far as damage. Whew. He's a lucky man.
Yeah. And he loaded his own rounds back then too. So.
Damn it! When he told clients he got shot, they were probably like, "Fucking pick the right one."
Yeah.
During the safety meeting, and you see this.
Just turns around and pulls his pant down.
Don't do this.
Don't shoot the guide.
What constitutes a master guide?
Well, in Alaska, you start off generally as a packer, and then you have to stay in good standing with the people that you work with. So you get these recommendations that go on to the, I guess it's ADF and G, and then you can become an assistant guide through a testing, and it's broken down by the area. So obviously, if you're in, say, Southeast, you're going to be studying deer more than caribou up north or somewhere else, and so you have to be proficient in your particular game unit, and then it's big on regulations, dressing out animals, and then having that rapport with other guides because you're in an apprenticeship program. So he went through assistant guide and then became a registered guide, and then if you're a registered guide in good standing for 10 years, no violations, and then also have more recommendations from other guides in your community, then you become a master guide. And at that time, he was working for Alaska's first master guide. He had master guide license number 1, and that was Hal Wah, and he started in the Brooks Range.
Yeah.
And that Brooks Range is that belt of mountains that's about 700 miles long across kind of the same shape as the Arctic Circle and right at the Arctic Circle up north. So for, even by Alaska standards, it's a northern area. And I think at the time people thought, well, this is too remote to really start a business, but he, that's what he wanted. That was his jam. So
yeah,
so cool.
Yeah. If I remember Austin Manelik.
Yep.
What did he say? There was like, you'd have X amount of kills under your belt. Like personally,
right.
if I remember right. And then the field dressing.
Yeah.
All that stuff impacted the master guide status. Like you had to have cleaned enough bears and moose and caribou. And all that too.
Do you get like a master's jacket
or a patch or something?
Patch.
I don't think
something? Did you get not a pin or something? Patch?
Even to this day, a buddy of mine just became a registered
good
guide.
old boy club.
I don't even, I mean, it seems like you get a cool belt buckle or something, but.
Yeah.
And then back then they just kind of had a map
Varsity
of the northern part of Alaska and just kind of drew with crayon, like this would be Joe's spot and this would be Mike's. And, and stay out of each other's way.
This is my territory. Don't go past this river or past this tree line.
I wonder how they worked out those disputes.
Yeah.
Arm wrestling, maybe?
Well, you see right here, it's red and blue is purple. This is both of ours.
It's like, let's pull the dogs out. Let's have a race.
There it is.
Welcome to Alaska Wild Project, episode 105. Today we have John Gaedeke.
Gaedeke.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, get a key.
Yes.
Get a key for the door.
Get a key.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to mess that up. God, I even asked and said it 50 times. Gaedeke. All right, Gaedeke. John is the chairman of the Brooks Range Council up in the Brooks Range. The Instagram is at Arctic Johnny, and your lodge Instagram is at Go North. Go Far North.
Go Far North. Yeah.
Go Far North.
Yeah, I got it up on Instagram here.
It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the folks started it in 74, built from the local lodges or the local logs around there. And yeah, that's kind of what we've tried to do is just integrate with the landscape and show off the area. And then we started up there before the national parks, but in 1980, that was when the Carter administration came in and started up all these parks. So now we've got Gates of the Arctic up there and Kobuk Valley National Park, and then there's preserves coming off of that as well.
What's the name of the wilderness lodge?
Iniakuk Lake Wilderness Lodge.
Okay.
Iniakuk Lake. It's on the lake too?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Iniakuk Lake is about 5 miles long. Most of the lakes and waterways in the Brooks Range are running north-south because of the direction of the valleys. Mm-hmm. And so that's one. There are 4 or 5 kind of bigger lakes up there. Iniakuk Lake's a little over 5 miles long. And then to the west of us is Walker Lake, which is a little bit more famous. It's in Gates of the Arctic.
Yeah, that one's pretty good sized.
Yeah, that's 11 or 12 miles long.
Yeah, we were checking that out on the No Road to Ambler
map
website there.
Yeah, and that's got
figure out which lake it was.
Some monster lake trout in it. It's 400 feet deep, so it's
Holy shit! Really?
Yeah. It's had some 40-pounders taken out.
Oh, some monsters lurking in there.
Yep.
We got a picture of your lodge. Is this the lodge here?
Yep, that's it.
That's gorgeous, man.
What's the
Absolutely
footprint?
Beautiful.
Let's see. I think it's about 28 by 36, and it's pretty hard
damn.
to build anything much bigger up there because of our trees are relatively small that far north. So you can, if you kind of look at the logs themselves, the butts might be 15 inches across, but by the time you get to the tip, it's barely 6 inches. There's a lot of taper.
Oh, they narrow down.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And the main construction of the lodge itself is all native timber right around the area?
Yep, and it was all hand logged. So what they do is go up the hillside, try to get them to. We have black spruce, which are down low, that are kind of like known as the drunken forest. They're kind of topsy turvy in the frozen tundra.
They like curve and all that. Yeah,
Real thin.
They're real thin. But then as you get farther up, better drainage, then you get into white spruce.
Yeah.
And so that's what you want for log building.
Those
but
are the
then
big boys.
Yeah, then you got to get up higher. So they would go up. My father cut those in the springtime, and then they would just get a bunch of guys together, cut kind of a trench through the willows, and then put 5 or 6 guys on a tree with ropes, and then run it down to the lake, and then built a raft, and then floated that to the north end of the lake.
Wow.
Hauled it up. So
I was getting ready to ask you how you guys got the logs to that specific location. That makes sense. Got it on the lake.
Yep.
And how many logs are there in the cabin?
Usually with those little trees, you figure about 10 per wall. So, So 40 for each story, and so that there's probably around 200 logs.
Yeah, look how they're stacked on the left side here. You can see where those narrow tips.
Yeah.
Oh,
where they're kind of filling in the gaps.
Yeah.
You can see it on the front too, I think, right there. Where it's like every other one.
Oh, how they got the skinnier ones up here.
Well, there's a skinny one and then a thick one.
Fat, skinny, fat.
So they are like opposing directions.
That is a real log.
Yeah.
Like real log lodge. That is fucking cool, dude.
Yeah.
What's the maintenance like?
That's pretty brutal. That's the legacy my father passed on to me. He died in 1991, and so then I've been doing maintenance ever since. And it's a lot. I mean, we're lucky that up there we only get a few inches of rain a year. It's a Arctic desert basically, but it's cold, and logs just need a lot of of attention. I mean, you've basically carved a house out of wood, and so about every 3 to 4 years, I resurface the whole thing, and then weatherproof it, and maintaining the roof is the big thing to try to keep it protected.
Yeah, it looks really tattered on the front edge there, like this front part.
Like a little weathered on the...
Yeah, that's the south side, so it gets, that 24-hour sunshine in the summer. And then
rotating around. Sorry to interrupt you there, Jack.
So what did you do for the roof then? Did you bring a mill in, or is that wood that you brought in?
No, the roof is all hand cut poles. Like you take smaller trees, maybe 6 inches wide, and split them in half with a chainsaw, and then put the flat sides down.
Oh, okay.
And so if you're inside the rooms, at night when you look up, you just see all these chainsaw marks. And it looks really cool.
I bet.
But it also rains. When I was a kid, it just would rain sawdust on you all the time, because to build the roof, you had to be up there cutting, and as you cut and place the logs, then all that sawdust kind of chinked it.
Yeah.
But it also kind of filtered through.
Yeah,
so if it started blowing and the house moved at all, then you come down to breakfast in the morning with sawdust in your hair. It just sort of adds to the effect, though.
Yeah.
And probably had an amazing smell, though, huh?
Yeah. And I think just the organicness of looking up at, like, it's hand-hewn logs, so you're looking at the peeling and the axe work and then the chainsaw work, so your eyes are just constantly, it's far more interesting than some drywall.
Oh, for sure.
It
reminds me of, like, looking at old, like, circle saw in, like, barn or something like that.
Exactly.
So is there, like, a tar layer or no?
Initially, it was newspaper shingles, so the newspaper in Fairbanks, the Fairbanks Daily News Miner, used to print on these sheets of aluminum that were, the size of a newspaper sheet.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, there'd just be stacks of these, and they would practically give them away. So my dad just collected all those and then went up there and shingled the whole thing.
Wow, that's pretty rad.
And then, over the years, we've updated it and then insulated it with foam, and so it has, I think, about 3 different roof iterations to get to where it is now. And now the easiest is rolled roofing, like asphalt roofing. So it comes in the big, like 80-pound rolls. And those are nice because I can just keep bringing a couple up each year until I have enough to do a whole roof. And get up there and do that. And then the next step, I'll probably move on to actual tin roofing, but that's more difficult because of the size.
Yeah. And how do you get that in?
Yeah, but basically everything, I'm trying to always think at least a year in advance. Because the bigger planes I can get in on the ice, and so I'll this spring I'll be staging for 2 more roofs next year, which will be steel.
Okay.
And so again, upgrading, but trying to get stuff in that's big in the springtime. And then I do have a log mill up there now, so then I'll start. Basically, my dog mushing season will start in a week and go till the beginning of April, and then I start cutting firewood for the next year. And working on that and make sure I have enough wood up there, not only for burning, but then also staging any logs I want to mill. Because I have snow machines up there, but of course you can only run those till about the end of April before it gets too soft.
Right. Man, that's so cool.
Do you have ATVs to run up there?
No, I've really shied away from them because they just tear up the ground so much.
Okay.
I have a couple of garden carts, and that's about as much as I want to get into, summertime wheeled stuff. And the clients that I have up there really, just want the peace and quiet of the area. And I really try to do any big projects in the winter. It's so much easier to move stuff around. And then the tundra is real fragile, all the willows and lichens and stuff. And so anything you do in the summer, you're leaving a mark for a long, long time.
Yeah.
That's great, man. That's got to be kind of hard to, I guess, stay, what's the word I'm looking for? Like true to that mantra, right? Like you don't want to mess. It'd be so much easier to just get an Argo or something out there side by side and be able to build trails and move stuff around, but you want it to be pristine, right? You want to keep it. Yeah,
but then also the snow machine technology has improved so much. I mean, one of the cabins we did build with an Elan up there, so these tiny little snow machines.
I think I had that up here. Is this the one right here, John? Is that like a guest cabin or something, maybe? Or
yeah, exactly. We call that the guest suite there, and that one's built just across from the other one. And those logs were hauled by Elan, cut the logs in March, and then brought them down to the lake. And then there's kind of a sweet period in the season when the snow melts off the lake ice, but then the lake ice is still dry and solid enough to haul stuff on it. And so something like an Elan, which is a really small little skidoo machine, can pull a big log on. You just make like a couple of little skids for that, and then just pull one at a time.
Just drag it over there.
Yeah.
And is that essentially from the main lodge going over that, like maybe that cove?
There's an inlet to the lake right there.
Oh, okay.
So you cross over that, and then
all right. So shallow there.
Well, you actually have to get in a canoe to come to breakfast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But then it also means that clients can be right there on the edge of the lake and kind of have that whole place set up to themselves. In the summer, we have full running water, and so they can have their own kind of in-suite bathroom. And then the idea is that you kind of feel like you've got your own cabin there, but we're close by and can check up on them.
That looks like the most amazing morning cup of coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can watch the loons will be out front fishing, and then sometimes a moose will come by, and it's just...
In relation to this picture, where's the main cabin? Is it across?
You're kind of standing in front of it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I envisioned.
Gotcha.
You were looking at, like you walk out of the front of the cabin and look across, and that's what you're seeing?
Exactly.
Okay.
So people that are going there, are they going to mostly just hang out in the cabin? Or are they going there to hike around?
The kind of clients that we get really like to see like kind of pinnacle ecosystems. So when I talk to them about other trips they've done in the world, they've been on like usually an icebreaker down to Antarctica. They've done some epic African safaris to like really be surrounded by big animals, big systems. So they come to Alaska to see, areas of huge amounts of mountains and glaciers, and they want to see the caribou. They just want to see really wild kind of pinnacle places. And so when they come out with me, we transitioned probably 10, 12 years ago to doing exclusive only. So when someone books, they get the whole lodge. We're not doing mixed groups. Okay. And then I do what I call kind of concierge guiding, which is they're kind of with me for, I'm available 24/7 to take them out and show them the area. And they just kind of want an immersive experience. So in the wintertime, I teach them how to mush their own dog team, fly dogs out there, and just have the dogs out for the season, which is about 6 weeks. And then in the summer, again, we have about a 6 to 8 week season. And I don't have dogs out there then, but I'll teach them how to canoe if they want. But mostly we have a lake boat, like a river boat, to get them out and just kind of float around the lake. And then also showing them the parks, Gates of the Arctic and Kobuk Valley National Park. And that's all by fly out. So they'll add on some flying. But then I don't fly, but I have a pilot that will come in, charter out with me, and then we'll either fly out to our cabins or just fly out, land on a river, have lunch, and just kind of tell them about the area, and then talking about it as we fly over. And I always tell them, like, we can go all natural and walk around here if you've got all summer to go somewhere, or we can jump in a plane in a couple of hours and see a lot more. And so that's usually what they opt for, is the
aerial view.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing.
Have you established some hiking trails and stuff for those like more adventurous folks?
I have a little bit, but it's a lot of work up there, because the more brush you cut, the more it grows.
Yeah.
And I've really noticed kind of a greening up of that area in the 40 years that I've been out there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's interesting talking to elders in the area, because they'll talk about taking these old machines, like these early skidoos through these passes, and I think, like, how did you do that? And then I realized they weren't fighting these alders. They just it wasn't nearly.
It's
as
overgrown now.
Yeah. It's warmed up a bunch, and it's green.
They're moving up the alders.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we're seeing is a recession of the ice age. So the tree line is slowly moving north. Where we are, we're about 60 miles from the tree line. It's 60 miles to the north of us. And then we have a cabin that's about 30 miles past tree line.
Oh.
And I've actually transplanted little trees up there, and they'll keep growing on the tundra, but they won't produce any cones. They look like they're kind of like, holy shit, like, what are we doing?
Oh, yeah,
right,
just barely holding on.
Yeah, and they're like,
yeah.
I had one that was doing pretty good, and then a grizzly bear came by and just mauled it.
Oh, really?
Oh, what the hell?
So I think he was like,
What's this thing?
This isn't what I'm used to seeing.
Let's test this out.
Chewed everything up.
They had a good article on that, actually, on the trees and everything that's moving north, and even one on the beavers too that are encroaching up there. Are you seeing beavers around there at all?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell. Kind of a combination, I think, of climate change, but also like beaver fur used to be like one of the number one modes of commerce, and you don't have people trapping for beaver. Like I've a buddy of mine, he bought his first super cub with beaver pelts, and you could spend a lifetime trapping beaver and not afford a cub.
Yeah,
now.
can't get enough money for that.
Yeah, so the price of beaver has dropped, but also the price of cubs has skyrocketed. So
Right.
Just done the flip flop.
yeah. Which is a bummer because it's really great to think that you could just go out in a winter's worth of trapping and put away, whatever, $4,500 worth of beaver furs and go out and buy a cub and then start your Alaska life. And those days are,
Yeah, what a cool story, dude.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are long gone.
And all the good mushing meat from the beavers.
Yeah, I mean, that's still a big deal. Beaver meat is rocket fuel. And
Yeah.
so I haven't tried it personally, but, dogs just love it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember Eddie talking about that.
Eddie was all about
It
it.
was like a Red Bull. It was
Yeah.
like, give them a few chunks of that frozen meat, man, and they were just, or you busted it out and they could smell the castor. They'd start yipping, yip, 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 get all excited.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised no one's done some little beaver snacks, for
Oh, yeah.
going out hiking.
Yeah.
I'd be onto something.
Come up with some good names.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That alone would be worth it.
So what running dogs, is that just one of those natural things that you got to get into when you're living in remote areas like that, or is that something you got to do when you're in Fairbanks?
Well, I initially what I wanted to do was show people the Northern Lights, but then I was really want to promote like a 24-hour experience, and so that's what I see people coming to Fairbanks for the Northern Lights, and then they're hanging out in Fred Meyer's for the rest of the day, and so I wanted to provide more of a full-time experience, and thought dog mushing, snowshoeing, skiing, that would be like the perfect way to round it out. But it took a long time looking for the right musher that would have good dogs to bring up there, and started working with Brent Sass.
Congratulations to him. He just won the Yukon Quest?
Yeah, Yukon Quest.
Yeah.
And he's defending his title with the Iditarod this upcoming year. So he's been great to partner
Better
with.
watch out for Eddie Burt.
Yeah.
We got a buddy who's going to be his first Iditarod.
He's a rookie.
He's been on the show a couple times, and he's like you don't see young guys doing this kind of thing, and he's like a young guy that's getting into it, and it's going to be his first Iditarod. I think he won the
Knick 200.
The Knick, and he got third, I want to say, in
The Yukon, I think.
the Yukon. Yep. So there's some competition out there, Brent.
Yeah.
But you linked up with him,
again,
though, huh?
Yeah, I being in Fairbanks, I was interested in the Yukon Quest when it used to run all the way to Canada and back, and so I was photographing it one year, and I see this guy coming up Eagle Summit, and he's southbound into Fairbanks, and Eagle Summit is one of the biggest climbs on the Yukon Quest. So it's a place where mushers can really bonk. And I got up there early in the morning. I knew that the way that the times had worked out, it was going to be morning light. It was going to be great for pictures, and then a chance to see a bunch of teams. And you have to hike in about a mile from the road if you want to actually spectate that area.
Yeah, watch them pass by.
Yeah, so I didn't want to go through all this work for like one musher, but I could see they kind of stacked up, and it would be a good show. So I go out there. I hear these dogs barking, and then I see this guy come up to the top, and he's obviously been working hard. And this was Brent. He parks his team at the top, and he's congratulating him, give them all a rub down. I was like, "Yep, that's great." Took some pictures, and then I expect him to pull the hook and take off, and he sets the hook and leaves his team right there, and then takes off running back down the mountain. And I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" And it turned out there was another musher who had stalled out, and rather than just pass him and leave him on the hillside, because basically, the dogs are kind of balked at pulling.
Like bottlenecks everybody up when you do that too, right?
Well, you're on kind of a hillside, so there was enough room to go past him.
Around, okay.
But he couldn't handle the fact that, this musher was kind of stuck, and maybe the dogs would sit there for a while and recover, but maybe not. And a lot of times you just got to get the team going again, and then once they have that impetus, they'll keep going. And so he went down there and he just grabbed the front of the team and put an extra line on it and put it over his shoulder and started hollering at the dogs, and they like, all right, we got a new leader up front, and they all started kicking, and they pulled this guy right up to the top. It was William Cleeden, this German musher out of Canada, who actually had one prosthetic leg, so he couldn't really kick a all that well to get him.
Okay.
And so I saw that.
He's probably down there struggling.
Yeah.
What
Well,
a stud.
he was just stuck. And you
Yeah.
don't want the team to turn around and run back down the mountain because, again, once they get momentum, it's hard to turn them around. So.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like, anybody that would take time out of their race to help another racer like that, that would be a guy to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's just like a true testament to a love and a passion for the sport and what it is, and for your brethren that are in it, and the care for that versus, you're in it to win it, but you also care about another human being and their dogs, and them finishing it and getting through it, man. That's a great story, man.
Yeah, and that's the
that.
neat thing about these dog races is that you, as long as you're in the race, you can help any other mushers, and there's no penalty to them. So they're not allowed outside help, but musher to musher they can help out, and they often do. And that's there's always a sportsmanship award at the end of each race that's voted on by the mushers. And so Brent had a stack of those, and the joke for a while was like, you need to get out front so you stop saving these guys, because he couldn't pass someone in trouble. And
that's cool, man.
yeah, he's been great to work with. And then I work with a buddy of his who runs the dogs, and so we get these just fantastically trained dogs that he lives remote just outside of Fairbanks. So they're really well socialized, and it's a great thing to be able to show people that come to Alaska that they can run their own team. And what we do is just start them off with 2 dogs and then add dogs as they get more comfortable, and then kind of based on their size and how far we're going, we'll figure that out.
That's way cool, man. Do you have your own dogs?
I have 2 of Brent's kind of retirees. One of them who had done a bunch of quests, and he's 11 now, and then another female who's kind of up and coming, but she didn't quite have the head for these big 1,000-mile races. And
I got a video up on Instagram here. Is this your crew?
Yep.
Nice.
That's
And so
you said
ski
2, and it
jor
looks
with
like
them?
you're on skis, maybe.
yeah, I'm on skis. This is running the power line just outside of my house in Fairbanks.
You're hauling ass. What are you doing? Like 12 miles an hour right there?
I think that might have been pushing 20 going down that hill. It was-
wow.
Oh yeah, you're going.
Oh, you are? Okay, yeah.
What's the dog's names?
That's Neon on the right and then Phoenix on the left.
Man, I bet they love that right there.
Yeah, they do. They
You know?
they love to run and be in harness, and they when they see the harnesses come out, they get pretty stoked.
Wow. Now, I'm looking at that kind of general area. Are you kind of outside of Fairbanks, like in that like Fox area? Is that kind of where
It's
you're at?
just above Goldstream area, which is a big musher community. But then, Goldstream leads to Fox, so it all kind of looks about the same.
Just like running the highway, those like rolling kind of hills
Yep,
there. That
yep.
looks like that area.
Yeah, and to me, that's what Fairbanks is about. When you start to get outside the bowl a little bit, people have bigger lot sizes, a lot of space. Often have dog teams.
That's the Steese. That's off the Steese.
This is off kind of Goldstream Road, that area.
Okay.
And then the Steese leads to another part of Fairbanks as well.
Okay.
I love
Way
that
cool,
area.
man.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I just love when you drive up in that area, and it's just like endless rolling. It's like a true interior feel.
Yeah.
Like I love rolling into Fairbanks. You leave Nenana, you get through past Skinny Dick's, go through the pass, and then you see the Tanana over there to the right, and you roll in. And of course, Fairbanks is Fairbanks, and then you roll through out of that bowl, as you mentioned, and then it starts rolling back. That's like a real good, I don't know, it's like a true interior feel to me.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that area.
Did you say before we started you were playing hockey out there?
I did play hockey in college in men's league. And it was on. I'd always played kind of pickup games through elementary and high school, but men's league was great, and I should probably get back into it. But they have each one kind of has its own sponsor, and I just got in with the plumbers and pipe fitters, and they did a lot of beer drinking in the locker room before he got out. And then I was the youngest guy on the team at the time, so they're like, "You're center," and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, is it a pretty big league? Is there like 10 teams
I have
or so?
no idea what it is now. I haven't played for a while, but men's and women's league is pretty big.
Take it, you got a lot of shifts.
Yeah. I was like, get back out there. You got lungs.
So
Crack open another cold shot.
Yeah. So when you're not running the lodge, what are you doing in Fairbanks?
Well, I have, it's a pretty idyllic life. I'm about 6 months of the year in up at Iniakuk, and then 6 months in Fairbanks. And that 6 months in Fairbanks is a lot of it is logistics spent getting ready for the next season, doing bookings. We do all our own bookings, and we don't have like a booking form. Like I want to talk to everybody before they come up there, really make sure that it's the right spot for them. And it's expensive. It's remote. A lot of people are worried about being essentially we're 200 miles north of Fairbanks, which is about 2 hours in a small plane. So if you needed medical attention, that's like a minimum of 4 hours. And if it was something big, you're probably going to be medevac to Seattle. So it's just like on and on and on. And most of my clients have not experienced that kind of like extremely remote area. And so just
like you want to prep them for, hey, this is the middle of the woods.
Yep. And and when I hear from them, I want their questions to be like, how big is the lake and how tall are the mountains? Not like, is it 2-ply toilet paper or 4? Like when they start asking those questions, like this probably isn't right for you.
What's the
like,
Wi-Fi?
Yeah, exactly. Like how
should
fast
I bring
is
some
it?
bug dope? Like, yeah.
Yeah. So
Get rid of
it's
Thermacell.
And the cool part of that is that self-selecting. The clients that show up are, they're generally ready for that, and they want that, and so they're really, just curious about the world and what's going up there, and just being far out of their comfort zone. So that's a lot of fun, and that I wish you could see a bit more of that in Alaska. And then I also work hard to promote other owner operators, and because they'll ask me, Alaska is essentially 4 or 5 states in one, and people have this idea like, oh, I'll stop in Juneau and then I'll run up to Anchorage and then to Talkeetna, and like wait, you gotta slow your roll. And I always tell people, pick an ecosystem. Like if you're into whales, spend some time around Juneau, hang out down there. And if you really want to do the mountain climbing thing, then spend a season in Talkeetna. But don't try to pile it all into one trip, because you just get overwhelmed and worn out. Unless you can really handle that. But ideally, I'll have most of my clients are coming up to just see the Brooks Range, and then they're off doing something else. And so I want that to be special, and I want them to really have the time to soak it up and not be worried about waiting in line or dealing with other people. And thankfully, we've built a business so that we don't have to do that, and it's nice.
Do some of them choose to drive to Coldfoot and fly in from there, or are they all flying from Fairbanks?
In the wintertime, I can fly in straight from Fairbanks, but in the summertime, I fly out of Coldfoot. It's easier because there is also a commuter that goes from Fairbanks to Coldfoot. So the logistics are a little bit easier that way, but they do have the option to drive up the road, and some like to do that.
Yeah, I'd suggest that.
Yeah, it's amazing though, the amount of people that even in Fairbanks that haven't done that drive, that haven't gone farther north. It's burly. Like you have to have a couple of spare tires, and you can get gas in Coldfoot, but that's it. So you got to be prepared.
Yeah,
definitely. You might have to be prepared to help somebody else too.
I recommend carrying a radio so you can talk to the truckers, and then being prepared to help somebody else out for sure.
What a gorgeous drive though, isn't it?
It's pretty cool, but to me, it starts in Coldfoot, like the good stuff, because then you enter the Brooks Range.
That's a good point.
You get into Adigan Pass, which is just mind-blowing. Everybody talks about going into Valdez, which is another amazing pass, but Adigan is a whole nother level. And when you look at the engineering that took, I just can't imagine someone walking up there and being like, we're going to put a road.
Up here.
And a big-ass pipeline. It's crazy. And then it's kind of like land of the lost. You pass through that, and all of a sudden the trees are gone. It's tundra. There's muskox. There's caribou. There's grizzlies and wolves, and they're just cruising the land, and they don't care about you at all. It is just, I think pristine is overused, but it's land of the lost type area, and that I think that's so cool to experience that. I love going up there in the springtime. Oftentimes when my season ends, I'll go up there and just to spend time in that area. The caribou are starting to go up to their calving ground, so if you're lucky, you can catch them headed north, and of course the wolves and the grizzlies are starting to wake up. The wolves are chasing after them for food, and so you can just be a bystander to these movements of animals that are just epic.
And that's like a early to mid June-ish type?
No, that's if you want to actually ski and be able to get around, that's what I like, because you can ski on crust that's really for pretty fantastic movement, like late April, early May.
Oh, okay.
in that area, and that's right when they start to head for the calving grounds, and then they'll calve in June, and usually by the first or second week of May, then the there's enough tundra that's exposed, and you can't really move around much anymore on skis.
I see. Yeah.
And then you got like 10 minutes, and the mosquitoes come.
Yeah.
So they get a whiff of that
sweet spot there.
that CO2.
Yeah.
I like it seems kind of like right about Gobbler's Knob is when it seems to really start to kind of roll, and you can see the mountains.
Yep, exactly.
And then that's
Gobbler's Knob, yeah.
Oh, Gobblers, man. Yeah,
That's
I was
funny.
wondering how it got its name.
Me too.
But then
It's
right
got a
Doesn't it
little
say on the sign there?
information deal there.
I think it says on there. That's a really good place to use the
does.
bathroom. I'll tell you that. It's one of epic.
it's one of
epic views.
the few. I mean, that's
I don't know
a bit of
after Bob's been in there for an hour, but
Yeah, if someone's fresh out of Coldfoot Cafe, you don't want to be behind it.
just had a double Coldfoot burger. I might have a photo of that, Daniel.
Of Gobbler's Knob.
The like little information deal, because there's a pump station. There's a really popular pump station, or a big pump station that's
Pump 5 is right there.
Pump 5, yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's also the cutoff for the ice road into Bettles, and that's how I kind of started.
Oh.
I started my winter trips by bringing snow machines in that way. So it's about 30 miles from the road into Bettles there, and that ice road opens for about a month or 6 weeks a year, and it's a pretty unique thing that the locals will build that ice road themselves, and then use that as a chance to truck in fuel for the whole year, and then it'll generally shut down by the end of April.
Can you Google it? I know you're looking on your phone, but
Oh, that's
it might be a
fine.
little faster.
Oh, on the Gobbler's Knob?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I was just going to try and pull up
I want to
the...
see what pops up when you put that in there.
The first thing you have to write Alaska
It's
for
going to
the
get
first
X-rated
one.
real fast.
The first one that comes up is in outside
Oh,
of
there it is.
Rainier.
Gobbler's Knob, Alaska.
There we go. The turnout?
Yeah, just go
that
images.
one
There you
there.
go.
Go images.
Okay, let me back up. Let me back up here.
A lot of the places on the Dalton are, named after people that didn't make it or stacked up a big rig or something. So, trying to avoid that.
Yeah, there's like an information, like, what do you call those? Like,
Let's say why it got named or whatever.
yeah,
And that picture on the top right is so epic.
right here. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, that's gorgeous.
Like, this is kind of when you're coming down off the knob, I guess, essentially.
Yeah.
Looking at the range as you kind of approach kind of where the range is starting, and it's like another maybe like half an hour, maybe 40 minutes before you start getting to the mountains.
Yeah, at that point you're about 45 miles from Coldfoot, and then Coldfoot's where you're like in the Brooks Range.
Yep.
I love that area.
Yeah, it's amazing, man.
I want to take the family up there. I've only been up there for hunting and stuff a few times, but I feel like I want to take the wife and kids up there just to check it out.
Yep, it's pretty cool. And
It's
then
a-
fall
it's-
time, the colors are just amazing. And the cool thing up there is that you can hit fall, and it hasn't even happened in Fairbanks yet. And then you come to Fairbanks, get another fall.
Yeah.
Come down to Anchorage,
Right,
third
right.
fall.
Yeah, you do.
What'd you call it? Land of the Lost?
Pretty
Land of the
much, yeah,
Lost.
That's good.
That's really
Very
good.
cool.
You do any float trips up there?
I used to. I've kind of gotten more and more of a clientele that's, wants to stay closer to the cabins and do more flight seeing. But we started off doing big game guiding and then some outfitting, and then occasionally we'd guide on some of the major rivers in that area. Initially, actually, my father's business started off as Alatna guide service.
Okay.
And the Alatna is one of the premier wild and scenic rivers that kind of cuts the whole Brooks Range in half. And that's where our other in holdings are, one at the very headwaters of the Alatna, and then another one about halfway down across from the Arrogitch Peaks.
Okay.
So, I floated those rivers, and then snow machined a bunch on either side of that.
If there was like a family float, what river would you do? If you can only do one.
I usually recommend like the John River because it's one of the cheapest access, because you can take one of these commuter flights from Fairbanks up into the village of Iniakuk Pass, and then just walk down the runway and jump in the river. And then, it's not quite that easy, but relatively speaking to the Brooks Range, and then you can float down the John River and end up back in Bettles and Evansville, and then catch that commuter again back to Fairbanks.
Yeah.
So you don't have to charter yourself, and that makes a big difference, because air charter is just keeps going up and up. And,
Yeah.
That's quite. What is that? Almost 100 miles?
That's
River?
That's probably more like 150 river miles.
Yeah, that's a long float.
It's a long ways.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, what?
Yeah, and you cover neat terrain since you start more or less above tree line, and then
Yeah, grayling.
Yep, grayling and pike, and depending on what time of year, you might see some chum as well.
Because that's pretty much the only salmon run that still is like prevalent that runs up through the Yukon, and then
We get kings into our area and chums.
Oh, really? You still get kings?
But not in big numbers.
no,
And-
but you can
Yeah, we
spot
get-
them from the plane in the creeks.
Yep, and
Okay.
we get kings that actually will come into Iniakuk even after they've spawned.
I love to hear that.
What about sheefish?
Sheefish are in the Alatna, but they won't make it all the way up to us. But then the Kobuk is the best known for sheefish. But then the Alatna does have a run. It's just not very accessible, so it doesn't get fished very hard, and they're not quite as big as they get in the Kobuk.
Maybe not so much of a food source.
Yeah, and not. I don't think the ones in the Alatna, I would assume that they don't go all the way to the ocean because it seems like such a long way river-wise.
Right.
Whereas the ones in the Kobuk and, like right now, guys
Yeah,
outside
there's
of Kotzebue
spawners that are going back and forth. And
Yep, and they're right now Kotzebue's ice fishing for them, and then
okay.
go back in, back up the river.
yeah, they're fishing them in that brackish where the salt fresh mix and freezes, and they're ice fishing that.
Yeah,
like that.
and I think they're in full salt water as well. I mean, it seems like
Yeah.
It's all in Kotzebue Sound there.
The Sound, that's what I meant. Yeah, Kotzebue Sound. Well, that's kind of where they'll harvest the vast majority of them.
Yeah, I would say because it's the easiest. I mean, if you
I
continue,
mean,
up
for
the
locals who are like subsistence-wise actually harvesting the meat.
Kobuk. Yep.
Never
Yeah.
tried it. Have you tried it?
No, I
Yeah.
haven't.
Have you,
No.
John?
Oh yeah, it's
Is it white?
It's white meat. It's really light. It's like even lighter than halibut as far as picking up any kind of seasonings. My favorite is to just give it a really light alder smoke, and then you can eat it just barely cooked, and it's delicious.
It looks like it'd be super bony.
It is, but they're big bones.
Okay.
So easy
Unless
to
you
get
can pick
that
them
out.
out of there.
Yeah.
You can eat the meat and then pick it out of your teeth like a toothpick.
Yep.
We have a competition in
Caveman.
our house with the bones. It's funny. Whenever we eat salmon,
What is it?
just whoever gets the most.
Oh, gets the most? Nice. It's not who gets them the fastest?
Yeah, my wife's smart. She always gets the tail part, so she gets none. It's always
Is cleaning a sheefish kind of similar to a pike?
No, not at all. I mean,
Okay.
the sheefish are so much bigger and a lot less bony. I mean, they are bony, but they have big bones, and a small sheefish would be like 10 pounds. So they're, and they get up. I think trophies at around 50 pounds. They get
big females, right?
Yep. And then they don't have any teeth, unlike a pike. So, I mean, it's crazy to have a fish that big, and you can just grab
its
it by the
mouth.
jaw and no problem.
no,
But
It's like that big around.
Pull a picture up.
It's like a box on the front, really square and bony. So sometimes they're hard to catch because it's hard to set a hook in that bone, versus a pike, which is just inhaling stuff. But then you've got all those teeth to deal with and all those bones, and then they have huge scales, and they're just not nearly as slimy as a pike. So it's a much kind of cleaner fish. And they fight a lot more. I mean, you're generally catching them in rivers, so they do a really good job of tail walking and using the river to help get away.
Oh, finding the stream and the current and pulling on you hard.
Exactly. Yeah, and pike will give you a good fight for like 30 seconds. And
Yep,
then
they're done.
Yep.
Yeah.
What kind of lures are you using, or flies?
There's like a
What are you
nice
doing?
ice
You can
fishing.
fly fish for them. The biggest issue is to try to get out into the pools where they at, and they tend to sit down almost on the bottom.
Okay.
And then they'll see something and they'll come up and nail it.
Okay.
So if you are fly fishing, it's usually better to get out in a pack raft and get out in the deeper water, and then use something like a sinking line that'll get you down in there. So you're fly fishing. You could use a fly rod, but
You're stripping.
you're stripping. Yeah, it's not.
Damn, look at that harvest.
Oh, wow.
That's
that
a
one's
fucking harvest
Holy
right there.
cow.
That's getting
Aren't they
some.
endangered?
Not that I know of it. They're pretty healthy.
They are? Okay.
There's a tank
That's
right
what the
there.
limit
They
is?
just aren't around a lot. So
Okay, they're just not
in
not as prevalent everywhere.
right. They're just in a few areas. There actually are some into the Fairbanks area along the Chattanooga, but they're smaller. And then, like I said, the Kobuk has the biggest ones.
Have you ever heard of the winds of the Chattanooga? That's an insight. We were
don't
on
think he
on
has.
a float up there and not on the Chattanooga, And one of those where the wind's coming and it's just basically pushing you upriver. And we just started just calling it the winds of the Shat because that was the only river we knew around there. And so it's just a thing, the winds of the Chattanooga. And now my kids are like, it's the winds of the Shat.
So those interior rivers can be brutal because they're so flat that they just meander.
Oh yeah,
Like the Alatna is like that. You'll be coming down and you're facing south, and then all of a sudden you're facing north, and then south, and then north, and then south.
Oh, because the wind's just pivoting your boat around.
No, because the
because it's the way it's
just meanders. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And then you get that wind, and it's like, oh, I'm in the wrong way. Got to around this corner.
I always tell people, like, you're in the land of 24-hour sun, so don't think you have to go during the day, which is usually when the winds are. They'll calm down at night. So oftentimes floating at night, you'll see more animals. It's a whole different light.
Yeah.
And you just gotta throw the clock out the window, take your watch off.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
That's pretty
Just
cool.
take naps.
But if you want shoulders like these,
Get the
wait till
lats
the wind
going.
kicks up. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back and get back into some more action.
Barney Sports Chalet, supplying hunters with the best hand-selected gear since 1963. Barney specializes in supplying hunters with the absolute best Alaskan-proven gear on the market for some of nature's most rugged and demanding terrain. Whether you're headed to the remote volcanic islands of the Alaska Peninsula in search of a brown bear, or the shale-infested glacial valleys of the Brooks Range for Dall sheep, it is critical you choose the right gear for your dream hunt. Don't miss Barney's exclusive brand, Frontier Gear of Alaska, tested from the high mountains of Tajikistan to the extreme conditions of Alaska. These products were designed for high performance and durability. Frontier Gear was derived from decades of experience hunting big game in Alaska. Paired with other top brands, it provides you the absolute best gear selection anywhere in the world. Stop in at Barney's Sports Chalet in Anchorage on Northern Lights, or check out their custom website and reference tool at barneysports.com.
The Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. BHA is the voice of our Alaska public lands, waters, and wildlife. From national level policy work to engagement with boots on the ground projects from Kotzebue to Ketchikan, BHA performs public land cleanups, hunting and fishing clinics, and community education to help take your game to the next level. BHA's community-minded goal is to uphold our hunting and fishing legacy while keeping wildlands wild and fostering the next generation of sportsmen and women for years to come. Make sure to follow BHA Alaska for upcoming events, local brewery pint nights, and more. Stand up for Alaska public lands and waters by supporting the Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Join us today at backcountryhunters.org.
The Treehouse AK, your one-stop dispensary located at 341 Boniface Parkway. Be sure to ask the bud tender about their deal of the day, because honestly, there's always something good on deck. And guys, listen, this is where the culture lives. At the Treehouse, their dedication to servicing consumers has been developed through a lifetime of involvement in the cannabis culture. They're committed to providing the highest quality products at whatever value your budget affords, while always maintaining the deep-rooted principles that have carried them this far. Their focus is on relationships over transactions, and you can always depend on them to treat you with the respect you deserve. Hit them up at thetreehouseak.com, and remember, you must be 21 years of age to enter their store.
Total Truck and Alaska Overlander, Alaska's premier supplier for custom automotive accessories and overlanding products, providing all-inclusive rental vehicles and trailers custom outfitted to explore the Alaskan backcountry with a unique and convenient traveling experience. At Total Truck, you can find brands such as ARE, RSI Smart Caps, Goose Gear, iCamper, Front Runner, Rigid Lights, Rhino Linings bed liners, and everything you need to outfit your truck or SUV. Alaska Overlander provides 4x4 vehicles and expedition trailers custom modified for Alaskan adventures and outfitted with rooftop tents, fridges, and all the camping and cooking gear you need to start exploring. Visit them at alaskaoverlander.com. It looks all like rusted.
Have you seen like when people take the pipeline and then they cut the shape of Alaska out of it?
Yeah.
And that's what this is right here. This is what that looks like.
It looks like the
with the texture, the lines.
Yeah, the lines in it.
Okay.
yeah, kind of like the clock in my house. Chad used to do a bunch of those. I have the Alaska clock.
Oh yeah, Cadillac.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he had some of the ones from the pipeline pieces.
That's pretty nice. I didn't
They're
know
like
you
really,
had that.
really thick.
Yeah.
Cadillac. Still building airboats?
Yeah, he's got big into that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's like his main business now.
Dude's
Is
got
doing airboats and
airboat.
doing like different things to boats.
Uh-huh.
And even like he did a really
Like fabrication
cool
type stuff?
fabrication stuff for them. And fabricating even things for like the 6x6, like building like the box and stuff in the back and brackets and stuff like
Okay.
that. That seems to be like where that business is going,
Sweet.
which is good for him because he's into doing
Yeah, you
that
can
kind of
do rad outside stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I was pretty amazed when he said he put a
Hellcat.
Dodge Hellcat engine in his airboat.
Well, he's turned it into like basically a show, like air show. I'm sure it's going to be at the boat show or whatever they do. It's that thing is like
Put something in there.
yeah,
Sick.
that thing is amazing. I've been trying to get him to take me to go rip it up Connect or something.
Yeah.
And go test it out and just blow
Sounds
my ears
intense.
off.
Man, that would be
Some
fun.
headphones, man.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you can. I've never been on the airboat.
I never have either. No.
No, me
John?
either.
Nope.
Yeah,
I've always wanted to. I mean, I see guys with their videos and the shit they can get into.
it's so loud.
I've
Dude,
been in
I'm
like
always
airboat
so scared to
country
do that.
with my boat, and I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
seeing airboats around. I'm like, oh, I'm probably not supposed to be up here.
Yeah. Yeah. And then those tight corners
This much
they're
water.
on, and it's just like it's so loud, and they're there, but you're like, do they know I'm here? And then you're like, where should I
Yeah.
go?
Oh man,
But luckily, like they can run in such shallow water, they can get around you pretty quick.
Deshka's pretty
Deska.
known for that.
Yeah.
Did you guys? I don't know if you saw it. There was some stuff on Instagram or Facebook or whatever last summer. So our boy Joe Lorenzen got into a real nasty hang up on 20 Mile or Placer.
In an airboat
I think it was 20 Mile. Yeah,
going up to the glacier.
coming down, I believe.
Okay.
And what the fuck did he do, man? He sank, came up on a log, and I think he ran the boat up on, and then it went back down into the river.
Yeah,
So
that's
he was
usually when
like
you get in trouble. It's coming down river because then the current just fills up the back and you're
That's what it
sunk.
was. Yep. And then he got hung. And so the boat was like partially sank. Got him and his girl and his gear off because he had dry bags and coolers, and he was able to get everything floating over to the shore. And then he had some other buddies come out with saws and then cut the log, and then they got the boat back off, back floating, pumped the water, ended up getting it running and getting it out of there. But it was just a nice, beautiful boat ride day.
Yeah.
You know, they went camping and shit, and then it could have turned into a fucking tragedy.
Oh yeah, totally.
And I'm like, damn, man, I've heard like coming around corners and boats smacking each other
Yeah.
and or hitting rocks and stuff, but never that. Like I didn't think anything of that, and so I'm intimidated at the idea of airboating.
Yeah.
I
me
mean,
too.
I want to go with somebody that's really good at it and go for the ride and try it out.
Yeah.
But the idea of actually operating one, it's kind of like flying a small aircraft. It's crazy it may sound. I have zero interest in like becoming a pilot or flying a Cub or a Cessna or any of that kind of stuff because I don't want the responsibility. It just seems like so many variables and things that can go wrong. I just don't even want any.
You gotta spend so much time doing it.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
and-
exactly it.
Yeah.
and so it's like once you're a family guy, so it's just like
Great point, man.
You get one hobby then, or a bunch of hobbies.
Yeah, it feels
you
like
know.
that would be like the only hobby, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yep.
And that's what I try to do with my friends. I have like the pilot guy and I have the mechanic guy. It's like the A team, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You be good in what you do and then come along on the trip.
That's
Like,
right.
That's it,
yeah.
man.
We don't have
That's-
to all try to be that guy.
Yeah, it's like having like your boat friends. Like I've got my saltwater buddy. He's got the big saltwater boat, and then I got a Kenai buddy. He's got the Kenai boat, right? I don't have an airboat guy yet. I got raft guys. I'm the jet boat guy. So it's like everybody has their
Yeah.
place.
I think that's the key
So-
to success. When you hear people
Yeah.
getting in trouble, they went outside, you know, of their expertise.
Right.
Oh, I'll just do this on the weekend and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have enough practice at whatever it is. Like you're not going to see me jumping on one of these Alaskan Outfitter rafts like you guys have and jumping on the Kenai and just like first try, jump out there and do a float. I'll be in a sweeper, fucking helivacking myself out of there. Like not happening.
Yeah, you're right about that. You got to kind of choose your lane and
You know,
proficient in that, and then hope that you can find friends
Yeah.
that are proficient in some of the other activities you want to do.
Yeah, I want to do the floating, but I don't want to row. I just want to go on the float and tear down, set up camp, call, cook dinner.
Well, it's still good to learn how to do it. Like I was telling my wife
Yeah.
this year, like this is your year to learn how to float because I'm trying to fish.
Yeah.
Well,
And
what
you
if you
can't
got
fish
hurt
and
or
float.
sick?
That's
though?
right. That's right.
And if something
know?
happens,
Yeah.
like who's going to
Yeah.
oar us out
Yeah.
of here? You know,
Right,
like you
right.
need to be able to like take over in case something happens.
Well, and you want to do the Golcano with them too, right?
I'm gonna do the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And so
I
I'm
mean,
not trying to
that's-
oar the entire Golcana.
Yeah. There's also like another part where like if you have passengers that know how to row and you're rafting either a river that you've never run before or that's had like new channels or something drastic happen to like the normal run that you do. When you have people in your boat that know how to paddle, then they anticipate the issues when you do. And so if you are going to have like a disaster, they're going to be making the good decisions with you.
Or just
and
a
you're not
variable that
having
you
to
gotta
tell
deal
them
with.
what to do.
Yeah.
Like shifting weight or like we have to bail because we know we're going to get sucked under this or high side or whatever it is. But you know, in learning to row is fun. So it's something like, I bet you like if you floated the Golcana or something with us, like,
I would do
day
it.
one, you'd be like,
mean,
"Oh, let me row. I want to be on the sticks."
I'm not saying I mean, I just feel like if it was a high stakes moment or something where, you know, this is a pretty gnarly corner, this is some gnarly rapids or something.
Yeah.
Like I don't want none of it, but to at least learn maybe just the 101s and some of the major like main maneuver type things. I feel like I want to have the skill, but I certainly am not ready to just throw my family in a raft and go
Hell
for
no.
it this weekend. Like, not happening.
Yeah.
I've heard plenty of stories about Kyle's corner and you know, Josh's sweeper and all of that.
Help! There's been plenty of that for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't want a band named after you.
No. That's what I'm talking about, man. Or a sweeper, yeah, exactly.
That usually means things didn't go well.
No, it's not a good thing.
You want the holes named after you. That's it.
That's exactly. Yeah, because you got the largest king or the most rainbows that
Most
day.
steelhead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skijoring. That's the word.
Skijoring.
Skijoring. That's what you do with the dogs.
Yep.
Yeah.
What is that? Skijoring?
Skijoring.
Yeah, it's a Scandinavian word.
Okay.
It just means going too fast on skis, I think.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Did Bjorn make that?
Oh, Bjorn is definitely a skijoring.
Bjorn had something to do with it.
Skijored probably. Yeah, we grew up skijoring with lab, not with a mushing dog.
Well,
You
it's
got
funny,
two of
like
them there.
not every mushing dog is comfortable with it because it's like having two knives behind you, basically. As far as the dog's concerned,
Right.
Like
Okay.
they can handle the sled and then the whole team, but the other thing is like a lot of sled dogs haven't been out front. Like you have your lead dogs,
Oh, right.
Then you have your swing dogs, and then you have your dogs closer to the sled and your wheel dogs, and so they get comfortable in those positions.
They're used to their lane.
Exactly.
This is what
Yeah.
I do. This is my job.
Yep. So you get a couple of retired dogs, and you're like, "Oh, these guys are sled dogs. We're gonna go ski joring," and then they're like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
First of all, it's like
do
having
that,
two
man.
knives behind you, and I've heard it does. Like the cross country skiing itself is not exactly that rigid. Like there's a lot of flopping around,
Right.
And so yeah, there's something to it in getting the dogs used to that. But with sled dogs, usually if you introduce them slowly to something carefully, they can handle it. You just don't want to freak them out.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Nothing
And you're always
about-
doing it with the classic skis.
I do, yeah. I mean, you could. I know some people are using these kind of like ski shoes. They have like a felt in the middle, and those are getting a little bit more popular. They just don't slide really fast enough generally. So
Okay.
the nice thing about those is you can get in deep snow, cruise around, and then kind of downhill a little bit, but not all that great.
Okay.
The biggest issue with cross country skis is you can't stop very well.
Oh, no.
Normally, if you're dog sledding, you've got a brake and a snow hook
Yeah.
to stop that team.
Okay.
Now, like on these pictures of me running the power line, the little pep talk before I do that with the dogs, like we're in this together. We all run straight through. 'Cause
Yeah.
if you guys see a ptarmigan or a grouse and you want to go in a different direction, dad dies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or it's just like,
Yeah.
knees and hips are coming apart.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Can't
Then
have
the
any
fun's
squirrel
over.
action going on.
No.
Yeah, they're getting it there.
Usually what I do is unclip from my harness.
Okay.
And then I take, if it gets too steep, and then I take the poles in their one hand, so I can pitch the poles, I can let the dogs loose, and then I can cartwheel on my own.
Yeah, that's right. That's
You have a chance of surviving.
Do you have the new skis with the metal edges again?
Yeah, I have. Kind of need like a whole quiver for Fairbanks because we get a wide range of weather, especially now. We're getting more ice events, so you do want to have some metal edges, ideally with for ski journey with the dogs. And you don't need anything that's super fast. Like if you're just a cross country ski guy, you're gonna have something super light. Then you got to get the spandex suit and the Oakleys and all that, and that's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
Is there any skijoring, like boarding? Just made that up.
I don't think you'd be able to do that because you're like you're like the dogs that are assisting you. You know, like you're not just getting.
Oh, you're not
pulled.
just getting pulled. Okay.
Well, it depends on how many you have, but again, the problem is stopping. So like,
But you could stop easier on a snowboard, I think.
with your face,
Yeah.
but you're not. There's no brake.
If you turn it.
Oh, you turn it and then they just pull you right on
But
your
the
face.
dog
like,
would just keep pulling.
But that makes sense because you can't like get going on your own.
So you're like helping up the hills and stuff, right? And
Well, you're pushing with your skis.
And it's
Got
also
it. Okay.
like, where's your pole fulcrum coming from? Because either like you have a handle and you're holding on with your hands, which means it's up high, or you're attached to your waist.
Yep.
So it's like midsection, but it's still not like coming off the board. So
Gotcha.
like when we'd ski jar with Toke, the reason I asked that is because we would do it with skate skis, not classics.
That makes sense.
And so, like, I feel like you're like, at least for me, I'm way more comfortable with skate skis because they have good edges. But the really good metal edge classic skis, you can also like snow plow and
they make more like kind of a touring ski, a little bit wider, a little bit thicker.
Yeah, and that's what you're using.
Sometimes it kind of depends on conditions.
Yeah, and that's what you would use if you're like up in the pass.
Yep.
Yeah, in the Brooks Range, like on the ice.
Yep, and then you can also carry skins for those, which makes it more versatile, especially if you're like caribou hunting. You want to pack something out,
right?
Then that's pretty nice.
Yeah, man, that's like really using the cross country. Like we go in the park, right, for fun. Like we're not really using them, and it's just like the dream is to like use all your gear for real shit, you know?
Yeah, like out in the middle of the woods.
Yeah. Well, like exactly. You know, going to the Brooks Range and you're like killing a caribou, and you have to cross country ski it out.
Your Subaru and go, man.
Yeah. So, I don't have a Subaru, but yeah. Thanks.
You look like you have a Subaru.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's a compliment.
I think that's the first time anyone's ever told me that, Kyle. But thanks.
Does Fairbanks want a Costco?
We have one.
Fairbanks has a Costco?
Oh, hell yeah.
They have double shovel in their Costco.
They do.
Oh yeah.
I didn't
Where's
know
the
that.
Costco at?
Yeah.
It's where the Sam's Club was. When there was that big liquidation, I think 25 or 30 Sam's Clubs across the U.S. went under, and then
they went into there.
Costco's in there within like 6 months. They just had to repaint it.
Like over there where like Sportsman's is and that kind of newer area over there?
Bentley Mall area.
Okay. Johansson Expressway right there?
Very good.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is that recent?
No, I think
While
6
back?
or 8 years maybe.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Oh, shit, man. I didn't know that either.
So do you know about this Fairbanks pot roast recipe?
I don't.
So this is like become contagious in Anchorage lately. I've had at least 4 different friends either cook or tell me they just cooked this Fairbanks pot roast where they, put the roast in kind of like you would do a normal roast, but then they dump a whole jar of pepperoncinis in. You haven't had this?
I've never heard.
In Anchorage, everyone's calling it the Fairbanks pot roast, but it is good.
That sounds amazing.
It is. It's really good. Yeah, Tangy was the first one, the fish, and a bunch of other guys. So yeah,
Just pour the whole thing in there.
yeah, the whole
Fairbanks
jar.
pot roast?
Yeah, that's.
Is
I
this
mean,
just the
this is
Anchorage
what
puker thing?
this
I mean,
is what the
just-
Anchorage people are telling us, but are eating, but they're all connected to
So
Fairbanks. Like the people in Fairbanks told them this. Each of them different people.
Are we sure
in
about that?
Fairbanks? Absolutely. I can name names. if you like.
Whenever someone asks me what the best restaurant in Fairbanks is, I always say it's someone's home. They'll
good
get them to
call.
crack open a freezer and come up with their pot roast recipe,
Yeah.
their slow cook, whatever.
Yeah.
Once you get a barbecue going in Fairbanks, you're going to see some good food.
Yeah. We need
That's
to
a
go
good
up and eat
answer.
some Fairbanks food.
The only thing I ate in Fairbanks is that Pizza Hut on the way back home.
You don't even eat local?
No, because if I'm in Fairbanks, that means I was just in the woods for like 12 days eating, freeze dried. And for some reason, I want the nastiest, greasiest
Pizza.
Absolutely. Just to get sick.
Yeah.
By the time you get to Talkeetna.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
We ate at that one.
Pizza after a sheep hunt, man. You can't beat it.
There's a breakfast joint that we went to one time.
Oh, that's a pretty good place.
What was Cisco and Scotty?
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called.
It was well known for its like crepes or something like that.
Creperie?
No. That's like an old fashioned name. Like a sourdough.
Sourdough Sam's?
Maybe that's it.
That was an institution for a while. It went under.
No. Sourdough Sam's is where I've taken you a bunch of times.
Okay. Is that what
it
you're
used to
talking
be
about?
like Susie's or whatever at one point. The one right before college.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was my spot.
Yeah, you're the one that took me there. Yeah.
Chicken fried steak, man. That was a good greasy spoon, man.
Yeah,
that was a good spot.
That was an institution.
There was like real Fairbanks people.
And it
went
burned
there.
down once, which is also the hallmark of a good restaurant in Fairbanks.
Oh, yeah. All that grease burned
Has
up
to.
on the back.
Has to,
All
yeah.
the splatter.
Yeah, it had.
You need a good roof burn once in a while, and it cleans all that out. And then,
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Freshen it up.
Yep, exactly. Remodel.
Yeah, they
That's
had
good.
like, Grenda and Pam, Wanda. They were the waitresses there.
Oh, Glenda. A good Glenda.
A good Glenda. Yeah.
They don't name kids that anymore.
Gertrude. Okay, I'll stop.
Let's jump into the Brooks Range no road to Ambler deal.
You know a little bit about that?
I do, yeah. That's been a bit of a thing for, I think, going on like just over 10 years now.
Has it really been that long?
Well, the recent inception of it. I mean, it's been the concept has been bouncing around probably since statehood. There are maps of Alaska that are covered in spaghettis of roads, but the Parnell administration in about 2010 or 12 kind of started kicking that concept around. And originally it was going to be a DOT thing, and it would be like a legit road, but the locals in the area didn't want anything to do with that. The idea that there would be public access, which has kind of been a sticking point ever since the Dalton Highway came in, because that was promised to not be public access, and now it is. So
yeah, I read a piece on in the latest news tab. Gentleman from Kotzebue. Let me see. I think I have it on a tab here.
This is on the website. On the
Yeah,
brooksrange.org
he had
website.
mentioned about how it was promised that the Dalton Hall Road was not going to be public, and it was, what did you say, 10 years after it was?
correct, yeah.
Yeah. And that's because of lawsuits that end up happening? Is that
federal
what-
funds were used. So anytime you use federal public money, then the public does have a right to it. So essentially what happened is, I believe the state of Alaska sued to open it up. So it was kind of this strange thing where these promises were made, which happens a lot in these situations. One entity makes a promise and another entity comes in and says, well, they didn't know what they're talking about, and throws all that out. So that's, I mean, I could easily see that happening with this Ambler proposal as well.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the funding that's going to be provided to build it. The fight that folks are going to want to access it.
Yeah, and really, the Ambler Road came about when there were this like glut of what they called zombie mega projects at the time under the Parnell administration. This was like Knik Arm Access. This was the Juneau Road. This was the Susitna-Watana Dam, Ambler Road. Like all these things that were just these pie in the sky projects, but no one would say, okay, we need to just pick one that's viable and one that would benefit the most Alaskans, that has real chance of economic success. And I think it's a problem in Alaska with having a state that's full of resources but really low on people. So it's easy to get just a couple of people that gin up this idea and say, well, this is great, let's go with it. And then it starts to get momentum, and the next thing you know, it's kind of like the emperor with no clothes. No one wants to call it out and say this is ridiculous. And somehow the Ambler Road proposal has survived all these other zombies, and it just keeps staggering on, and it keeps milking the state for a few million each year. But again, it's kind of one of these things. We've got the Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority, which is this sort of like quasi-private company inside of the state of Alaska. It was initially started with state funds with the idea that if there was some group that could kind of operate inside the state, but without having to worry about all these other issues, they could get more done. And I think initially it was a good idea, but it's been sort of kind of bastardized by the different political systems and the different people in power, and so now it's the usual cronyism and picking these projects that are not necessarily a good idea. And that's kind of what we're seeing with Ambler Road proposal, which is a about 210 mile proposal that would take off from right around Pump 5 on the Dalton Highway and then cut straight west.
Right by the Gobblers Knob.
Right off Gobblers Knob.
Yeah.
And basically skirt the southern edge of the Brooks Range and then make it out to this area that has a mineral belt called the Ambler Mineral Belt. And that area was discovered in the late 50s, early 60s. It's known to have copper and quite a few other metals, but they're totally stranded. So it's one of these things where everyone says, well, if we could just get a road out there, but I'm sure there's minerals on the moon too. It's just they're not very accessible. So
yeah. Now, is the main stickler on that, as I've done, a little bit of research on it, that basically the state is going to pay for this? I mean, taxpayers are going to pay for this, but they're not going to be able to access the road, and so the beneficiary is only the mining company.
It's not even that. I mean, it's more complicated than that, because with ADA, they have this seed money that came from the state, but now theoretically they're kind of self-sustaining. So they have certain projects that have been revenue positive, like they did the Red Dog mine access road, which is much smaller. It's only about 50 miles, and then in that case they had an agreement with a mine for a road. So all this thing was locked down through contracts. And in this case, it's much more complicated because you have the potential of multiple mines and everybody paying in a little bit. Like it would be a toll road. So ADA has to come up with a way, essentially, to sell bonds for this road, and they don't have enough money to build the road themselves. The mining companies don't have enough money to build the road themselves. Everyone just says, well, if you build it, they'll come, and the mining companies say, well, if there's no road, there's no mines. So it's a kind of a weird dichotomy of actually kind of two industrial proposals, because the road itself would be probably $1 billion across some extremely rugged terrain, and then the mines would have to happen to provide funding for that road. So it's in litigation right now because the initial process that happened during the Trump administration kind of sidestepped the fact that this is a mining road, even though that's exactly what they were calling it. So when you do an environmental impact study, you're saying, what is the impact of this incursion, but also what is the foreseeable use of this? And they didn't really get to that part. They just kind of concentrated on the road and like, okay, what would a couple bridges look like, even though it's like 11 major bridges over these rivers. These are like, Knik arm size bridges. And or Knik River, and then they never
massive bridges, big ones.
Yeah, and mostly single span. So then the other thing is like, how do you get such big steel that far north? And there are just a huge amount of issues that ADA typically doesn't do their due diligence on. Like they're fine at myopically looking like, oh, what if we do this thing in the middle of nowhere? It'll be great, but then you realize like, well, what does it take to get there? We got to get fuel in from Valdez, and we got to get steel, and we got to do all this stuff, and that has to come hundreds of miles on roads that are barely holding on anyway. So there's just a lot. They actually launched a study, I think about a year ago. ADA was going to spend like $250,000 to find out what would happen if this road actually got built. How would they get stuff out of there to the port in Anchorage, which to me sounds like something that you would do before you propose a road. Like, they literally don't even know where they would go with this road. So it's unfortunate because it's taking a lot of resources from people in the area that are either worried for the jobs, like they want to get trained up and be ready to accept either mining or road construction jobs. So that's one thing. But then there's also people like me that are looking at this and saying, well, this is like a huge environmental incursion, and is it really going to pay for itself? And what's that going to look like? I mean, my family built a business literally from the ground up. So like we've incrementally adjusted as things happened. And, we start off with hunting, but we see that's, that kind of model wasn't as sustainable as more like ecotourism. So we shift and we morph, and we're at the size that we can do that. You put in a huge industrial access road like this, and there's not that many things you can do with it, especially with the size population in the area. So it would really be nice to see the state and the legislature kind of looking in on that a bit more. But again, ADA is this kind of weird, sort of almost like a quasi-private industrial thing that the board is actually, decided by the governor. So there's a lot of power there by each administration to decide which direction it's going to go in.
What does ADA stand for again?
Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority. And that's the other strange thing with this mineral belt is that at this point, all the companies that are interested are Australian and Canadian, and none of them are Alaskan. Of course, there's subsidiaries to that. There are different, outfits that do expediting and whatnot that are from the state of Alaska. But the ore at this point would be taken out of the ground. It would not be processed. It would be trucked somewhere. They don't yet know where. I mean, ideally somewhere like Anchorage, but it could be as far as Seward or Valdez, and then shipped to Asia to be processed. So that this concept even that it would benefit the state or our energy complex is pretty far-fetched.
Yeah, well said. I mean, that's kind of a good overall explanation of where maybe some of the biggest hurdles are.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to see a real debate about it. The problem is if you ask any questions about development, then you're labeled an environmentalist. And, if you don't get on board right away, which, like I said, it's a big disservice to the villages in the area because, most of them are right at the poverty level, especially the strange thing about this proposal, too, is that it crosses the continental divide. So you've got, like, where I'm at on the Iniakuk River area, that's a drainage that goes kind of more south into the Yukon River and then eventually into the ocean. And then you cross that divide right around Walker Lake area into the Kobuk drainage, and that goes west into the Bering Sea. And so that's a whole nother native culture. It's a whole nother people that have had a lot more development. The Iniakuk River people have not seen that much development. What they have seen is the Dalton Highway. A lot of them, the elders now, were hired to help build that road. And then as soon as it was built, they were laid off, even though they became operators. They became good operators and were told that would be sustainable. And then the road was built, and they're like, okay, go home to your villages. We don't need you anymore.
It seems like what I've looked in that Peltola, Murkowski, are they backing this? They're like,
they are, but they pretty much back anything that has the word development in it. Which again, it's this idea that there's no really discernment, like which really bothers me. It's not, again, we can't develop every single concept or project in the state. So we have a finite number of resources and time and abilities with these different infrastructure projects. We need to have sort of some way to say, like, this is a good idea and this is a bad idea and this is somewhere in between. And if this happens, then we can move in this direction. If it doesn't, I mean, that's sort of how the pipeline was built. The oil companies got together and said, well, we've got a lot of oil up here, but it's going to need a pipeline to get it out of here. And they got together and they built that in an incredibly short amount of time. And it's been profitable ever since. And so, that's what happens when industry sees something that it wants. And in this case, ADA has also a bad habit of trying to fill in these gaps and say, well, industry doesn't want to do this, we're going to help them out. But in a lot of cases, industry doesn't want to do it because they know it's not profitable. It's going to lose money. And so industry, like these mining companies, are like, hey, build us a road and we'll show you a mine. But I mean, that's like 80% of the cost margin on this stuff. And then I didn't realize until this started how much mining is more about selling shares of a mine. Like in most cases, only about 10% of mines actually dig into the ground. Most of the time, it's about advertising to shareholders to get interest in something, because it takes a lot of money to move it forward. So it's a pretty wild thing. I didn't realize how much of a gamble it was. I mean, it really is gambling.
And then it goes in their resource bank, which goes against their books. And
yeah, and in a lot of cases, they are, there are mines that are purposefully put forward to be a write-off.
Yeah,
They know it's going to be a loss, and it's going to downplay some other thing that they're doing.
I was thinking more like on the reserve side, where it's like, okay, well, our company's more valuable because we have these reserves sitting over here. Yeah, that's really interesting. So the ADA doesn't have a ranking system that ranks the profitability of the projects they're looking at?
Not that I've seen it. And anytime you ask them about profitability and any of this stuff, they tend to go into an executive session, which means they shut the door. They don't have to involve the public, and then you don't know what's going to happen. There was just a report that came out by Salmon State that was kind of auditing ADA over the last 30 years, and the numbers were not good. And of course, ADA came right back and said, this is not a reality. But they haven't actually refuted any of the numbers put forward, which I would like to see. Like, why not have a roundtable and they can show what they're doing? And that report was done for about $30,000. And again, ADA has now thrown like $250,000 out there, hoping that some contractor will pick it up and do a favorable report. So, I mean, this is like schoolyard stuff. Like, why does it take so much more money to say that you're right? When this other report, is saying like, hey, there are some issues here. And it's not like we need to pull the plug on ADA. They have done some good things. They have the ability to do good things. I think the red dog isn't necessarily an environmentally helpful thing to the region. Like, it's been pretty tough on Kotzebue in that area as far as the amount of toxins that they've released, and especially in the Woolwich River, where now people are drinking bottled water in the Cayena area, and so there are certainly issues there. But from an economic standpoint, the ADA sat down, this was in the 80s, and said, okay, this is how much it would cost to build a road. And then the mine, this was Tech Kaminko, said, okay, this is how much we'll pay over the years. And then there's a payoff date, just like on a mortgage or anything else. And there were contracts, and that seems to me like pretty legitimate. And in the case of the Ambler Road, there are no contracts. There's it's really pie in the sky stuff, and it's field of dreams. They just keep saying, if we build it, they'll come. And Alaska is littered with projects where we built it and no one came.
Yeah. What stage of the process is it in? Has it had an environmental impact study done?
It has, and that was during the Trump administration. And in the last few days of the Trump administration, they basically granted a right-of-way permit. Oh. But then the Biden administration was litigated. There was a native tribe, the Tanana Chiefs Conference. And
this is during the public review period afterwards, or?
No, basically it was finalized.
Oh, okay.
And then the Tanana Chiefs Conference and a couple of other environmental groups got together and litigated to say, hey, in this environmental impact statement, you're supposed to look at all these other things that come from a road, and you're also supposed to be looking at cultural aspects and things that could be run over.
Right.
And we don't feel that was looked at properly, and it went to a judge, and the judge said, yeah, you're right, this was not. And
so they're reworking on that now?
It's in a pause right now.
Okay.
And it's hard to say what the Biden administration will do, because they are, on the one hand, pushing local minerals for things like EVs and solar panels.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they don't want nothing but scorched earth, so they're trying to figure out like what that would look like.
Yeah. What do we have mineral deposits for EVs there?
I mean, theoretically, it's again, I think if you were really interested in getting copper for the United States, all you'd have to do is go to a copper mine, like say in Arizona, and say, well, this one's already going. If we're going to throw $1 billion at something, let's throw it at that. And you'll get out more copper. You already have roads. You already have infrastructure. Like, we're almost going to the moon to get more.
So there's no like rare earth metals here. We're just talking about mostly copper.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Walk us through some of the major negative impacts that could possibly occur.
I think number one is the caribou. I mean, we're the last state with any caribou left. And all the states bordering Canada used to have caribou in them. They were prevalent, and Canada is having a big issue with their caribou now as well. So as the more industrial development, the more that their habitat gets fractured, the more it hurts them. There are herds in Canada that are like at 99% decline now. And in this particular area of the Brooks Range, we have three major herds: the Western Arctic, the Tashekpuk, and the Central Arctic herd, and the Western Arctic is the most famous because around the 2000s it was almost 500,000 head, or somewhere around 550,000. Huge, but it has had crashes in like I think like in the 1970s it was probably down around 60,000 or something. So it has a history of crashing, but then it builds back up, and the biologists tend to say, well, it can build up as long as they have that land to roam. But if you start boxing them in, and especially keeping them from their calving grounds or their different areas, I mean, if you have 500,000 caribou, they need a lot of land to graze. And when they graze land, they oftentimes can't come back. At Iniakuk, I've noticed about a 20-year cycle. We'll get, I think in 2012, I had 1,000 caribou that were that wintered over on Iniakuk Lake. It was fantastic. Like, you come out in the morning and there'd be ice fog on the lake from their breath. They're just sleeping out there, and you'd run a dog team out and they're just like exploding like a video game. There's just caribou like running everywhere, and it was awesome. And then but they hammered the caribou moss and all the vegetation around the edge of the lake, and it took a couple of years to come back. And then I expect in 20 years I'll see them again, because I remember as a kid seeing them like in the 1980s or so. So it's like it's really cyclical, and they seem to know somehow that they need that time to come back.
Is there major reports that happened when the haul road happened, as far as the impact that had on the caribou?
There were some, but in talking to the elders in some of these villages, especially along the Kayakuk, they say that there were herds that were not counted, so that they had what they call resident herds, that they, they weren't just sporadically, like I said, on Iniakuk, I see a herd or a group of caribou that shows up, once every 15 or 20 years, but they would see ones, herds that were overwintering in the Ray Mountains and the Alatna Hills and the Help Me Jack Hills, in these different areas, and those bands have disappeared. And in a lot of cases, they blame that on the haul road, and they blame that on the fact that they weren't studied in advance and they weren't marked, because the way that the biologists kind of delineate the herds is, where they're overwintering, where their summer grounds are, and then where their calving grounds are. And there is a lot of mix, and especially with the Canadian border being relatively close by, they can mix and match, and it's not a big deal for them. We call them different herds, like I said, the Shekpuk and the Central and the Arctic, but they're fine to wander amongst each other. They're not shying away from each other because they're from a different herd.
Can you maybe pull up, Brandon, if they have it, a map that kind of shows the different caribou's range, or like the different groups in their range? I know I've seen that before, and they'll show colored maps of the different herds and where they're going.
Yeah, and you should be able to pull up, especially with the Western Arctic. It'll show that their calving grounds are kind of in that northwest corner of Alaska, and then they used to come down in the winter into the Seward Peninsula, and that has kind of retracted a bit, partly I think because of their numbers, but then also partly because of the temperatures.
Yeah, that one.
Can you click on it? Maybe we can get to it. There you go. Click to it. There you go. Perfect. We're on the adfngalaska.gov website for people that are just listening, and it's kind of showing all the different caribou herds.
31 of them.
Well, I didn't know there were so many.
Yeah, and some of them are pretty small, and they're really localized. Like, you see some of these ones down in the Kenai Peninsula, and they're tiny. But then number 29 is that Western Arctic, and that's a monster herd. Like I said, it'll winter down into the Seward Peninsula and cover a big area, but that has shrunk up a lot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you'll see where it overlaps with 26, which is the Central, and to Shekpuk up there.
And then the third.
What's the red dots? Is that the calving grounds, or that's a separate? Oh, yeah, that's a separate one.
That's the Teshekpuk.
Gotcha.
And they got them all broke down there.
Yeah, and then 3 is the Central Arctic. So of those 3, it's hard to say when you're in the Brooks Range which one of those you're seeing exactly. Like,
because they're all mixed. Day. They're all kind of mixed bag there.
Exactly, but they're sort of delineated by their calving grounds.
And then the porcupine's way over there in the east.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
But those are big herds because they have a lot of land and a lot of freedom and no roads. And then when you come down farther south, they're much smaller. A lot more people, a lot more industry, and less habitat. And then these ones like around Fairbanks, they get hammered. The 40 mile, I won't hunt that one because it's just a shooting range around there. You get some.
Well, it is a shame that, I mean,
that.
if people are like, mostly road hunters and things that you can only really access if you don't have the money to go on a plane and go to some of these more remote, that's what happens to Nelchina herd and the 40-mile herd. And
yeah, that's all
obviously
road
what happened
access.
to Kenai Peninsula and all that stuff. It's just, there's just so many more hunters that are going out there. And like you said, you go on that 40-mile hunt and you better watch out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You might get your side by side or yourself shot out there.
Yeah, it sounds like a free for all. And I know a couple years ago, they normally had like I think a 1 bull bag limit, and they switched it to 2. And I guess no one thought to at Fish and Game that if you have a couple guys from Anchorage, they'll come up for 2 caribou times 2 or 3 guys, whereas they wouldn't have come up for 1 caribou. And so it really changed the hunting pressure dynamic, and then the area just got hammered. Plus, the herd was close to the road that year, so you could see them. Everyone got excited, and then it gets wild. The stories I've heard from people having bullets whiz over their head, and
yeah, I've heard those stories myself.
So
It's a big turnoff.
So it almost seems like where the road would go and start, you're going to impact 3 different, maybe 4.
yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at with the scope of the map. And I guess I have a little bit more perspective and buy-in on the ideal that it will impact the herd because it runs east-west. And it's basically, it's right here, right? About right in that kind of general area?
A little bit farther south. And then
A little further south, okay.
And then the other big concern is that all the valleys in the Brooks Range are aligned north-south. So if you want to impact the most amount of water, you would go east-west with your road, and that's exactly what the proposal is doing. So
as we look at this map here, John, you get all these drainages dumping down out of the mountains, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And this is really wet country. It's not wet in terms of rain. Like we only get 10 or 11 inches of precipitation a year in that area, but
it's marshy.
It's marshy and just a lot of waterways. And then, during runoff in the springtime, there's just a huge amount of water that dumps out. And then by the end of June, it dries up. And then in August, it all comes back again and gets really wet.
Would it say 11 major bridges?
Yeah, all these little yellow boxes represent a major river or a major river crossing.
What's that purple area?
Shit.
What's that purple line?
This purple area,
Right
the concept with a lot of these projects is that you should come up with alternatives. And so ADA came up with this alternative mostly because of Gates of the Arctic National Park. So here they're crossing, I think, 20 or 25 miles worth of park, and here they only cross 12. So, I mean, it was always a goofy thing to me because obviously you can't see this park line when you're flying over it, and so this would be like strictly for reducing your footprint on park lands. But to me, like the whole area is important. So that was kind of done to help potentially appease park people, even though the right of way through Gates of the Arctic National Park was already established when the park itself was established in 1980, because the mineral belt was known of. So I think Ted Stevens was involved in that, and there was a lot of pushback to national parks in the 1980s, and people thinking that Alaska was so big, like why do we need national parks up here? But the Carter administration was really interested in getting these national parks put into place, and so the agreement was, well, we'll do it as long as there is a right of way already established through that park, that federal lands. But this area is a patchwork of state and native and federal, and so it's which is good because it means that all these different players have to work it out.
Was there any proposals coming from the other way, like barge and then come in a road that way? That would be
from the west.
From Kotzebue.
Yeah, that'd be a lot shorter, right?
Yeah, it would be a lot shorter, but it's more federal land, and you have to go through Kobuk Valley National Park and these federal areas that were not established. Like that's one thing that Stevens and other officials at the time didn't really look at and so those corridors are not built into those federal lands areas. There was also talk about having a rail come up from Nenana, which would be like come down here and access that area. And I think that's another failing of the EIS process, was that they say that they looked at alternatives, which they're federally mandated to do, but they actually didn't. I mean, this straight line here was what was proposed initially, and everyone was like, this is really
Let's
the only
do this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the cheapest. It's like, when you hear about these projects where the lowest bid comes in, and they can that's what you want. So
Yeah,
it's almost like a child
yeah.
was like, well, we can just go from this road straight over there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the rail line, I mean, that's more of a south-north.
Yeah. From
Exactly. And if you actually wanted to transport, or if you want to benefit locals by being able to actually haul fuel and goods in, and you're not going to have hunters hanging off the side of that shooting caribou,
Absolutely
it's a
not.
very, it's something that you can police easily. And
Less
and
impactful too.
Yeah, it's like truly an infrastructure project, and yet
Yeah.
there were no meetings about railroad, and I think it's because it was expensive, and it was not like, I think the road was pitched as something flashy, relatively cheap, and let's just do it. And you hear these politicians now. I think Sullivan is one of them who's constantly saying, like, why is it that Connecticut can have all these roads, and why is it that Rhode Island has more roads than we do? They're just not comparable. There's way bigger populations, way more infrastructure. It's like complaining about not having roads on the moon. It doesn't make any sense. Like the roads that we build in Alaska, we can barely maintain them now. I mean, look at plowing in Anchorage. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any? I'm sure that they've dealt with this a lot in Canada, especially with the caribou and the migration of the caribou and all the mining and things that are happening up there. Is there some takeaways that certain groups could take from past already evaluations and history that they've had there?
Yeah, I would say the big takeaway is that roads and mining are killing their caribou. I mean, they're disappearing quickly. Like I said, there are herds there at 99% decline. There are biologists that have basically stopped studying boreal forest caribou because they're going to be extinct in these areas. That really, like, barren ground caribou is about all that's left in a lot of these areas, just because they're so far north that they're still to some extent away from these industrial incursions. But that's the big takeaway, is really, of all these herds, right now it seems like the porcupine herd is the only one that's potentially still stable or growing, but I don't think there's been a good aerial survey on it for 3 or 4 years, so it's possible that those numbers have changed.
Go back to the map of the caribou.
Sure
That's the one that's
I
on the.
just deleted the damn thing too, but
That's the one on the north, right? The north slope. Or
Yeah,
the Arctic.
it's northeast is the porcupine, and it shares Canada. So on these Canadian studies, just so like we can go look at them later and stuff, what are 99% decline? What are some of is there like links or access to like see some of that data? And so like, our listeners can look at those and start seeing like, hey, let's learn from someone else's issues.
what the hell happened?
Yeah,
All of a sudden it's experiencing difficulties.
Of course it is.
Just 5 minutes later. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much any of these studies, if you just start Googling for caribou in Canada, and especially these specific herds, because like I said, most of them are named and delineated due to their areas,
Right.
And then they'll have these numbers on them, and like with the Western Arctic herd, you can see these numbers, crashing since the 2000s. Like I said, they are kind of cyclical. The ones in Canada, to see all of them crashing to the extent that they are, it's pretty alarming. And we have more and more technology with drones, and especially satellite imagery, to really get good counts on these herds now that we didn't before. I mean, it used to be you would have a Cessna or something out there with a camera underneath it, and they'd shoot some pictures, hope that while they're doing a census, it was a nice, bright, sunny day.
Right.
And then they take these images back under a loop and start counting caribou. And now, you can do that digitally with satellite imaging.
Really?
You get really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they were doing that.
The issue now is that Fish and Game has to put a lag on that, or hunters could look at that information and be like, well, that's where we're going to hunt because that's where they are. So there's generally like a 6 to 8 week lag on their information just to make sure that people aren't using it to go hunt them.
Totally.
Now, is the idea that this herd is going to come to where this road is being built, whether it was in Canada or what's proposed now, or the Hall Road, and they're doing their annual migration, and they go and they can't pass because there's construction happening, and then they just get off course?
This is a topic that that causes a lot of consternation with people, and especially with development. And I think there was a fish and game biologist by the name of Jim Dow out of the Kotzebue area, and he was the first to really look at collar data of these caribou and say, well, let's say we have a known road like the Red Dog Mine Road, and we have the Western Arctic herd that encounters that. Now, if we have, let's make a proximity of that. So if a collared caribou comes within 30 miles of that road, what do they do? And so he just set up this computer module to pull those numbers out and see what they did. And because ostensibly he was flying over it initially, and he'd see, it's fall time, it's starting to snow, and he'd see caribou tracks across the road and say, well, they're crossing the road. It's no big deal. It's not a problem. But when he actually looked at the collar data, he showed that these caribou that came in contact with the road would actually school to the north of it like fish, and they were caught in an eddy. And they would sit there while all the other caribou that didn't hit it would continue down to the Seward Peninsula. And they're generally migrating at like 7 or 8 miles an hour, and they're grazing, and their concept is they need to get to their winter grounds, but they're eating along the way. And then these other collared ones that encounter the road, they'd school up like fish above it, like caught in this eddy, and that eddy would sometimes last like 3 months. And so now that caribou that was supposed to get down to the Seward Peninsula by like late October, he's still way north. And so then finally one day he's like, okay, we're going to cross this road. He crosses the road, and then he's cruising at like 12 to 15 miles an hour to get down to where he's supposed to be. So it has the impact of a pressure on that caribou that can't eat as well when they're traveling that fast. And then also the locals, they're not able to hunt those caribou because they're just cruising through so fast. So there's a couple of things that were happening that he was, I think, really the first to notice that through that collar data. And the more they've looked at that collar data, the more they've seen exactly that, this weird eddying thing that happens when they encounter this road. They don't like it.
Are they seeing that same thing in not in Nilchik, what's our...
Nelchina?
Unit 13, the Nelchina herd, where they're having to cross there's 2 different highways there. Not the Steese Highway, from Fairbanks to...
The Richardson?
Richardson, thank you. And then the Alcan.
Yeah, I'm not sure about them. I mean, in those cases, they just don't migrate as much. Like the Western Arctic
stay.
The Western Arctic herd moves so much. I think it has one of the largest land migrations in the world. So thousands of miles. So you can really get this big picture look at like what they're doing and where do they need to go versus Nelchina and the 40 mile. They have this like 100, 200 mile area that they kind of bounce around in. So it's a lot harder to say, like this is a problem for them.
Okay.
Because you're looking at these little dots and trying to make sense of it.
What's that road there when you're looking at the map there, U.S., Canada, and there's that one road that goes all the way up to the top there? I know my father-in-law said he's gonna do that one on his bike. I know that because it's a really...
This one right here?
I know that a lot of guys that do those crazy motorbike, adventure bikes stuff, they will choose that road.
Enduro?
Yeah.
I think that one's the Taylor. I'm not sure. But there's one of them that... that's...
Well, he was showing me pictures, and I was like, well, I would suggest you do that one because you're trying to go on that Hall Road. That is a nightmare. That's like no fun for bouncing around all day. And then he showed me the picture of that other one, and it seemed like it was paved and beautiful the whole way up till you get to the Beaufort Sea.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's called the Iniakuk Tukaveka. Tukatoyak Highway.
Yeah. But it seemed like, man, you could get some research there because that's crossing directly in the path of where those caribou on that side have been going through.
The porcupine.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, it seemed like that road was way more invasive than the Hall Road, where the Hall Road is kind of skinny dirt road looking kind of thing, where this one looked like a major paved. highway with big embankments and things like that.
Yeah, again, I think it really has to do with the general shift of the herds and where they're going, and that difference between northwest versus east-south. So, or east-west versus north-south, and that, like with the porcupine, you could have something that they're kind of brushing up against, and can deflect them a bit, but it's not like a wall there, because that's north-south, and kind of the direction that they may be moving. But I think it does also kind of segue into these issues that we're having, these cross-boundary that we're talking about now with mining and fisheries in the south. And like if there's a mine in Canada that can affect waters in Alaska, like we should watch out for that, in the same way that we promise a certain escapement of kings into Canada up the Yukon River. Like we need to have more and more of these agreements, because we have to look at these whole ecosystems.
And that's the second major environmental impact that would happen, is those water affecting the waterways. Correct.
Yeah, I mean that, but also the impact to the people. I mean, mining is kind of a tricky thing. Like I said, it's really it's a gamble where you have about 10% success rate. So I know right now, like Ada is sending teams into these villages and promising a lot of jobs and trying to recruit people. They do honestly want local hire, but then also what they're talking about is a structure that isn't necessarily prevalent in the villages, working a 9 to 5 or working a 2 week on, 2 week off. If you're in Kobuk, Shungnak, Ambler, like right next to that mineral belt, then maybe your commute isn't that far. But if you're coming out of Hughes, Huslia, Alatna, Alatna, you're going to be flown out and then, be a couple weeks before you get back. And a lot of people haven't experienced that kind of thing going on. I mean, the biggest industry right now for the Iniakuk people in these villages is firefighting in the summer. And so then you have a group of villagers that form a firefighting unit. So you're culturally together and you're united, and then you go out and fight a fire, and you might be in Arizona, but you're surrounded by everyone in your village. So it's a pretty unique system, and it seems to have worked, fairly well. Mining is very different. And then the other thing is, you can have shareholders that just decide to drag up one day, and you can be the most skilled bucket operator, and your job is just done. So that's tough, and I really worry about that, because I hear it from the elders who worked on the pipeline road. They worked hard to get their certifications and learn how to run a cat and get good at it, and now they're blading snow on their roads, and like Alatna has like 4 miles of roads, so there's not a whole lot for an operator to do. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Let's take a quick break, and we're gonna come back and maybe get a little trivia and get back into some more of this topic here. How's your trivia? We'll see.
It's pretty trivial.
Tailored Restoration, 24-hour emergency home services, helping Alaskans restore their dreams since 1972. Services include fire, water, mold, post-emergency cleaning, repair, and remodeling. Tailored has an emergency response number with trained professionals available to help you at any time, day or night. Give them a call in Anchorage, Eagle River, Matsu, or Fairbanks. Make an appointment today at tailoredrestorationalaska.com.
Since 2008, Serrano's is Anchorage's own new generation of Old Cocina. Their menu showcases the passion and love of their rich heritage and unique family recipes that have been passed down through the generations. Serrano's goal is to embrace and display trad flavors using the best ingredients that are available. They focus on making everything from scratch daily. In-house menu includes handcrafted corn tortillas, salsas, carne asada, and chorizo. But don't take their word for it. Experience their tradition and sabor for yourself. Locations on Tudor and Northern Lights, both with new tequila bars. Check out their daily specials at serranosmexicangrill.com.
The Connoisseur Lounge, located in the heart of Palmer, Alaska. The Connoisseur Lounge is Palmer's first locally owned and operated cannabis retailer. Their beautiful store is located at 226 Evergreen Avenue. The Connoisseur Lounge has exclusive cannabis products such as Snowcap Romance, Aurora Haze, Super Glue, and one of our favorites, Sugar Cookies. And if you're not into the flower, the Connoisseur can hook you up with edibles, vape supplies, and a ton of CBD options for all your health and inflammation needs. Check out their daily deals at theconnoisseurlounge.net, or even better, stop by the lounge today. Remember, you must be 21 years of age to enter their store.
Where to go there, John? You were saying your dad was saying what now?
Well, he was pretty anti-park at the time because he'd spent
Yeah.
his whole life building up a hunting business, and then overnight
Yeah.
they came in and established this 8.3 million acre park. So it was a rough time growing
He
up.
was
then
pissed.
He was super pissed, and he was German, which is like
Oh yeah, extra
double pissed.
feisty.
It's super feisty. And actually, he was Prussian, so he'd come. The family had been forced out of East Prussia during World War II into Germany, and then at the end of World War II, immigrated to the United States into Washington State. And so it was like, kind of this classic American story where they're the kind of refugees. There was a big push back then to bring Germans into American society, and like this reparations concept that we can hold everybody down and like they did in World War I, and then you have World War II, or we try to have these reparations. And so my father and all his brothers really grew up very American. Like they wanted to learn English and they wanted to be American, and I wasn't taught any German at home. It was just like, you're American and this is where we're going. So
Kind of went away from the culture and
yeah, to some extent, although having this hunting lodge, it really appealed to Europeans because this was their pinnacle concept, that you could go into the middle of nowhere, there'd be this big lodge, and you could have your schnapps and cigars and base out of there, and then this pilot with a bullet hole in his butt would take you out to these cool areas. Like they were eating it up,
man,
and then he spoke fluent German, so there was no
he was
issues
still
there.
like entrenched in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so our clientele was probably 95% European to start.
Okay.
And they loved it. So
you could see that.
We have trivia music, Daniel.
We're still working on it. Still in the works.
We're gonna find something good. Yeah, if anyone has something, send it in.
Yeah, email
You could
us.
even make your own.
Ooh, we need what happened to the jingle guy?
I'm still working on it.
What will we give someone if they a shirt? If you would get some
We'll give 'em
swag.
If
Send
you come
us
up with a jingle and you send it to our email, alaskawildproject@gmail.com, we'll send you whatever you want.
Let's
from the
have some
website.
dialogue first, and maybe we can get them in the studio, and we'll have a little.
Well, let's see what they got first before they bring them in. Here.
We have to select it, but if we select it, they get some swag.
All right.
All right. All right, we're gonna do some trivia. So, John, you're probably gonna nail all this trivia. So,
don't build me up too much.
Let's let Daniel and Brandon guess first, but then you guess last.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. I got a lot of confidence.
Are these multiple choice? Because that's how.
No, there's not.
I wish they were.
I
wish they were. I feel like I'd kill that shit if it was multiple.
Yeah, we don't play that. We don't play that way. Yeah, we do have a thing if it follows the Bob Barker rules. But okay, what latitude is the Arctic Circle at?
Yikes. 62.
49.
And they should pull your ADL for this one. 66.
That's right.
Thank you.
I was close.
Thank you.
Yeah, 66.6. Yeah.
Pull our driver's license for that ID for that one.
I mean, just yank it. No more driving an ADL.
That's it.
I mean, this trivia, a lot of it in the existence of Alaska Wild Project is like, how do these guys not know this shit?
Right. That's what I'm saying.
It's fun and humbling to us most of
And
the
I'm
time.
sure I've read it and learned it in school and all those things, but I mean, there's just a lot of things you just learn and forget.
Yeah.
I would say that's fair. I mean, you spend a lot of your time right.
But you've all hunted north of the Arctic Circle, right?
I have not.
Traveled.
I mean,
Yeah, we've been.
a couple of times, but I didn't.
You didn't feel
focus.
that bump when you went over it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of bumps, John. Like bumps so much that I got bumped out of my seat.
Yeah.
So where's your wilderness lodge in comparison to the line?
We're 60 miles north.
Okay, sweet.
So you've seen it on the map a few times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, my dad used to do a little bump in the plane to let people know they crossed it.
that's awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
So 60 miles north, what do you get, like 10 or 12 days of dark?
I think technically we don't. It's kind of weird. The Arctic Circle is not like this perfect line. So it really depends on the mountains and the valleys and stuff. But we actually, on winter solstice, will see the sunshine.
Really?
But
okay.
And I'm not entirely sure if that's a mirage or like we're truly getting it. But I have been up there then, and I have had sun on my face. It was like, that.
Just a quick peek.
Yeah. Okay.
A quick flash.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Why is the Arctic Circle important? Like, what? Why does it exist? Why is that 66.6 important?
Brandon?
Well, I'm thinking in terms of its circumference of the planet, the Earth itself, right? Like I'm just not very educated on this shit, but just thinking about how the Earth is round. Get to the top, it's got its cap, right? Like, would that be like its upper cap?
Why would they pick that as being like the Arctic Circle and not like some other number? Why wouldn't it be like 70 or 54? Why is it 66.6?
Why is it 66.6? It's got to be some sort of calculation.
Well, if you carry the 2,
I don't have a clue.
Man, I'm gonna say it has to do with the sun. I'm gonna say it has to
Absolutely.
do with the sun. It has to do with the amount of sunlight that happens there and the rotation of the sun, of the Earth around the sun. That's my guess. You just gonna take my guess too?
I mean, I already threw mine out there.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, I
You want to tell us, John?
did the best I could.
That's where you're going to see that during the equinox that theoretically there would be no sun on December 21st and then 24 hours of sun on June 21st.
So yeah, the one latitude south that you'd still have sun, right? On
Got it.
winter solstice.
So I was right.
Yep. So it's
Close
right
to
at
right.
that. Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Okay. And
it was a group effort. Answer.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about these like summer solstice and winter solstices. What's the fancy name, the fanciful nickname that we call those two? So
I'm like
I'm
actually
trying to
feeling
answer
like an
this.
ass why I don't know this.
You know.
I'll
these.
tell you why
So
in a minute.
You know
Equinox?
why these, but what do we call them in Alaska? Like those 2 days, not winter solstice, summer solstice. They're the
Longest and shortest days of the year.
yeah. But what's like the fanciful name? There's a brewery named after one of them.
Midnight Sun.
Yeah, and what's the winter one?
Winter sun.
Damn it.
I don't know. I said winter sun. They all laughed at me.
You know this one, John?
Well, the equinox.
Right. What's the fanciful Alaska name? We got midnight sun for the summer solstice. What's the winter solstice?
I guess I don't know that one.
I don't know that one.
I didn't know this either. So it's a polar night.
Polar night.
Yeah. So that's like the actual like fanciful name for
We
I'm gonna start.
we
calling
always
it.
just called it time to go to Hawaii or Mexico.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a real Alaskan.
Start
Time to
getting
leave.
cold,
All
let's
right.
get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, that was some fun trivia. Though. I enjoyed.
You know what's a
researching
really
all that.
fun fact and like coincidence?
What's that?
So my father's birthday is on December 21st. My birthday is on June 21st.
Wow,
Go figure.
that's unbelievable.
how that all worked
That's
out.
fucking
right?
rad, dude.
I know,
You're like
like-
born to be in Alaska.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's like, how does it? His is the winter. I'm the summer. Go figure.
Wow. I wanted to ask about the movie Paving Tundra. I noticed that on your guys' site. I want to go back and watch that. And anyone that wants to check it out, if you go to the Brooks Range Council.org, is that what the website is?
Brooksrange.org.
Just brooksrange.org, and on there is the link to the movie, or is it a movie or is it more
It's a
like
documentary
document?
about 26, 28 minutes long.
Okay, explain to us, for people that are never going to watch it, kind of what it is.
Yeah, there's a filmmaker named Jamie Dittmar who came up with the idea to come up there and kind of document this in the early stages. I think it was about 2015 when she came out with a few other filmmakers, and they spent about, I think, 4, 5, 6 weeks basically kind of ground truthing the proposed route going from Pump Station 5 area, give or take of the Dalton, cutting across, and to really follow it is difficult, summer or winter. And so I kind of discussed it with her, and we kind of looked at what's viable and what would be filmable. And ultimately, they floated the first part on the Iniakuk River from the Dalton Highway to the village of Bettles, and then which is pretty much right along the road proposal, and then jumped in a plane. Or actually, they floated all the way down to Iniakuk, which basically it follows the river, but it kind of heads south of where the road proposal is. And but they got to talk to people in those villages that would be really impacted. They're downstream, and they would potentially cut off their caribou, pollute their rivers and water, and the people are actively worried about it because the Iniakuk people have already seen that. These issues don't really result in jobs for them, and yet they degrade their habitat. And so she got to talk to them, and then she flew from there into visit my lodge and my family up there and kind of see what was going on, what it looked like to have a business and a family that lived up there as long, and then jump from there over to Walker Lake, which is kind of the headwaters of the Kobuk River. And so got to jump into that watershed and then float the Kobuk. It takes about 10 days to go from Walker Lake to this tri-village area of Shungnak, Kobuk, and Ambler, and then got to meet with those villages, film them, and then I think I'm not sure if the whole crew or some of them eventually floated all the way to Kotzebue, but they got to more or less follow that whole route, give or take, and see the people in the area and talk to them. And then they had also set up to talk with the mining companies and visit the mine. But once they got into the Ambler area, the mining companies balked and wouldn't talk to them.
It's unfortunate.
So yeah, it's kind of a bummer that they don't have that, because the mining companies have really pushed that their culture first and that they want to have jobs for the people. But if you ask any questions, then they tend to kind of run and hide, which is unfortunate with all this stuff. Like my family was developers. Unless we question development, then apparently we're environmentalists. But the state of Alaska should really be talking about this stuff. I mean, we're a huge state with huge resources and not that many people, and we need to, make smart choices. And so, there's big talk about the Willow Project now, and drilling in the refuge, and these mining things, and actually even in Fairbanks, like we have the Fort Knox gold mine just north of Fairbanks. But because of the flight patterns flying in and out of Fairbanks, nobody sees it. But it is a massive hole in the ground equal to about the size of Fairbanks. I mean, it's huge.
Wow.
But unless you look on Google Maps, you don't see it. And it's a huge taxpayer for the Fairbanks area, but it's also a huge electricity burden, and it's caused our rates to go up. And it's been a thing.
Yeah. Where are some places that people that want to learn more about this are interested in learning more about this? Where are some places that they could go to, whether donate or maybe write a letter or whatever?
I would say, the Brooks Range Council, brooksrange.org, has a pretty comprehensive website that gives you kind of some links to the area.
I've got it up right here. It's a great website.
Yeah, and it's
links, YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's pretty basic and showing off the locals in the area.
Yeah.
And then the National Park Service Conservation Association, NPCA, has gotten involved because they're kind of this citizen watchdog group that kind of looks after national parks and has a membership across the U.S., kind of looking at all parks and potential issues with them. And so this obviously got onto their radar by crossing Gates of the Arctic and Kobuk Valley National Park. And so they've really kind of mobilized and are working to connect Alaskans with people in D.C. and lawmakers and citizens to, question what's going on here and really bird dog it to make sure that if it's something that we do, that it's done right. And that's, I think, also just asking your local representatives about it and having these hard conversations. It's good. I think people need to be involved, and if you don't, then these wild things happen and aren't as wild as they were before. And I sometimes get people saying, well, your family has done this and now you want to keep it all to yourself. There is nothing that we're doing that's putting up a gate. We're not a gated community at all. I mean, I think to me it's really kind of like a trails issue where you have a multi-use trail system. Like Anchorage is great about it, like the trails that you have here that everyone can access. But if one person fucks them all up for everybody, then it's no longer multi-use, and that's the thing for me. So we need to look at these incursions and these big developments that would be an impact to everybody and say, is that worth it? Because it would change the dynamic. And so if it's this concept of not in my backyard is a bad thing, I think everyone should be worried about their backyard. And then, that's ultimately what, makes Alaska great to me, is that you have these communities that are watching out for the caribou herds and the different salmon populations. And, we're worried about this stuff because we eat off of it and we love it and we live it. It's cool. This is a fantastic state. I mean, it's like 5 states in one. It's great.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I think, doing some research in the weeks prior to this podcast, and as we've gotten involved with backcountry hunters and anglers and their big support push on the No Road to Ambler, there's a lot of good information on this, both pro mining and that dynamic, and then there is the information that you can find on the Brooks Range Council website, where there's enough information available to you, both online and in paper, where you can go balls deep into this, study it, and then come up with your own informed opinion on whether you support it or not, or there's a lot of good information, and some say there's some bias here, bias there. I think there's enough both ways that you can look at this and you can make a decision for yourself. If you're an Alaskan and you want to say something or ask questions, that you can find good information and allow yourself to take action, whichever direction you want to go. And I say that on leaning toward the side of really read into this from all angles, and before you pass judgment or you make an opinion on it, read up on this. Look at all the information. There's tons and tons of research and information available to people to look at. And then if you're interested, you can take action on the website there. You can actually submit what you want done and what you want to say. You can actually make an impact on it.
Yeah, I think so. Especially if you reach out to your local politicians. I also have there's a link to a petition on there. We have, I think, over.
Yeah, I got it right here up on the website.
We've had over 103,000 signatures. I mean, it's not nothing. And
that's what I meant by that.
Yeah, people are interested in it and should be interested. I mean, these things should be talked about, and I think it would be nice to see ADA be more receptive to just these basic questions, and it could make the whole thing better and more sustainable. I mean, that's what Alaska needs. In your gut, how do you think this goes? My gut is that it if the state is trying to do something that private enterprise can't handle, it's going to fall flat. I mean, we have roads to nowhere. We have all kinds of things. It doesn't sound good, which is not great for the people of the North. I mean, there isn't a whole lot of investment up in these areas, especially for the Iniakuk people. And the problem is when you introduce something that's a bad idea as the only idea. That's what really grinds me on this. There are smart people in these villages. They want development. They're just saying, don't burn our house down to make us warm. That doesn't make sense. We want smart investment. They could do a lot in these areas, but you show up with this big shiny concept, these foreign companies coming from Australia and South Africa and Canada, and everybody just falls all over themselves to make it happen, and it's not right, and it's too bad because we're smarter than that. Well said. Well, John, thank you for coming in and chatting with us and taking the time to fly here and chat with us about this. Yeah, that's so cool. Anyone looking to look further into John, it is at
Arctic Johnny on Instagram, and the Beautiful Lodge. The Instagram for that is at Go Far North. Any last?
Thanks, John. I appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. And I take all questions, and I'm a total Alaskaholic. So, any questions about the Brooks Range, the Far North, Fairbanks, hit me up, and I'm always happy to help people get out and get out and see this place.
Alaskaholic, man. I like that one.
That's a good one.
That's a really good one. Yeah, thanks a lot for taking the time to jump on an Alaska Airlines flight down here and to have to turn and burn and go right back. And I think that shows your dedication to the message and what you support and your support for us. Thank you. We support you, and man, appreciate your time.
Awesome. Well,
thank you so much, John.
Stay wild, Alaska.
You'll remember my speaking to you of what I call your overcautiousness. Are you not overcautious when you assume that you cannot do what the enemy is constantly doing?
The Alaska Wild Project podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors.
Barney's Sports Chalet, supplying hunters with the best hand-selected gear since 1963. The exclusive home of frontier gear built for the rugged Alaskan terrain. Your one-stop shop for all your outdoor needs. Visit Barney's today at 906 West Northern Lights.
Arbor Digital, the forefront of digital assets, cryptocurrencies, and wealth management, providing a low-cost, research-based investment strategy for Alaskans looking to invest their hard-earned money. Visit arborcapital.io today to put your money to work.
Tailored Restoration 24-hour emergency home services, helping Alaskans restore their dreams since 1972. Services include fire, water, mold, post-emergency cleaning, repair, and remodeling. Give them a call in Anchorage, Eagle River, Matsu, or Fairbanks. Hit them up at tailoredrestorationalaska.com.
Total Truck and Alaska Overlander, Alaska's premier supplier for custom automotive accessories and overlanding products, providing all-inclusive rental vehicles and trailers custom outfitted to explore the Alaskan backcountry with a unique and convenient traveling experience.
Serrano's Mexican Grill, 2 locations, one on Tudor, one on Northern Lights. The Northern Lights location has their new tequila bar. Check it out. Also see their daily specials at serranosmexicangrill.com.
TheTreehouseAK.com, located at 341 Boniface Parkway, Alaska's own and grown cannabis and CBD store. Ask the bud tender what the strain of the day is to get your 10% off. The Treehouse, where the culture lives.
The Connoisseur Lounge, Alaska's premier locally owned and operated cannabis retailer, located in the heart of Palmer, Alaska. Their cultivated products include Snowcap Romance, Aurora Haze, Super Glue, and much more. Find them at theconnoisseurlounge.net.
AKO Farms, located in Sitka, Alaska, built from the ground up with concentrates as their single motivation, with exclusive products such as their sugar wax, full spectrum diamond sauce carts, and more. Ask your local bud tender about AKO. Marijuana has intoxicating effects and may be habit-forming and addictive. Marijuana impairs concentration, coordination, and judgment. Do not operate a vehicle or machinery under the influence. There are health risks associated with consumption of marijuana. For the use of only by adults 21 and older. Keep out of the reach of children, and marijuana should not be used by women who are pregnant or breastfeeding.
The Bait Shack, located on Ship Creek upstream of the bridge. Can't miss the bright red shack. They are the go-to fishing gear rental and guide service on Ship Creek. Tight lines and fish on. Come hook into the action with them. Hit them up at thebaitshackak.com.
Snow Pro AK, your snow and ice management company specializing in business and residential properties. They know what it takes to keep your property presentable and safe. Give them a call for a free estimate at 280-7098 or visit lawnproak.com. Double Shovel Cider Company, located off of Arctic and 58th. Handcrafted Alaskan-made colonial ciders. They also have a tap room downtown on the corner of 5th and E. Stop by today and taste an award-winning cider.
The Alaska chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. BHA is the voice of our Alaskan public lands, waters, and wildlife. Their goal is to uphold our hunting and fishing legacy while keeping our public lands wild. Stand up today and join BHA at backcountryhunters.org.
Should you not claim to be at least his equal in prowess and act upon the claim? I say try. If we never try, we shall never succeed. This proposition is a simple truth, and it's too important to be lost sight of for a moment. If we cannot beat the enemy where he now is, we never can. It is all easy if our troops march as well as the enemy. and it is unmanly to say they